Alright. Since I'm planning on playing Sword of the Stars The Pit, I figured I'd go through the first game, the second game, go through some like the stuff they have. I'm not going to be doing any like gameplay stuff. So it's basically skirmish based. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each scenario thing, kind of read what's happening in the story to get an idea. 'Cause it's the closest thing this game has to a story. I'll go through the cinematics, and I might try out the tutorial if it's not too long. I'll probably have that as like at the very end, so that if it takes too long to do it, I'll just cut it off. I don't want to spend too much time with this. I'd rather focus on the main game, which is the pit. But I figured it'd be good to get a refresher, or not really a refresher, just an idea of what's going on. So I'm gonna start at single player. They have a custom option, which basically allows you to make your own custom game, like all the races and stuff. You have the Morigi, you have the Zool, you have the Lear, you have the Tarkus, you have the Hyvir, and the Human. I have to check if there's a Tarkus, but no, there's all these other ones as a race. I believe that's the Shepherd. That's the Seeker. That's the Warrior. That's the Marine and Scout. I think it's also the Psionic. Just basically, that's the Human's the main race. Like, you know, just the neutral general idea when you play those games. I don't know which one the Lear is. I'll have to check if there's a Tarkus one or not. I have all the DLC, but I just briefly ran through the characters just to see a general idea. Anyway, let's do the single player scenario. We have multiple ones here. Basically, these are just the general idea. You start up a scenario, basically gives you a general battlefield layout instead of making one of your own, so that you could just either host the game of this and fight other people as different races, or you face the AI. I believe it also had like multiplayer with the custom games, so like people got into crazy stuff. To get a general idea of these games, it's basically Civilization in space, but you could customize your own units, because you could like make custom ships and stuff. I think there's an economy too. I know it's touted as a 4X, and maybe my definition of 4X has been wrong all this time, but my idea of a 4X is like Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen, the X3 games. Those are very, like, I played a ton of that. I was kind of going into this game with that idea, and I got like skirmishes, so I'm not too excited with it. But the pit, I'm really looking forward to playing. I had a ton of fun. I did end up recording 3 episodes of it before this, but I'm just gonna scrap those because I decided just to go through and buy the gold edition along with the other DLC, because it's such a great game so far. So I kind of want to start over with that in mind. Anyway, I will start with A New Hope. I'll just read the descriptions of these. Give me 1 second. The Frontier Alliance attempts to split away from the militaristic bonds of Soul Force. Earth rejects their claim to sovereignty and uses force to retrieve the wayward colonies. It would be a simple job if there weren't 3 alien races looking to exploit the division of the human race and form alliances with the new human faction. The rules, there's no rules. Objectives: Frontier Alliance, in order to win, must attain 3 worlds. Okay, so I wasn't sure if any of those will give any lore stuff. Now the Antiquarians. With the morning's intelligence report, it became clear the race is on. So it confirmed that enemy scientists have been thinking along the same lines as your own. The ruined yet half-operational derelicts found from time to time suggest a larger whole, and if enough of them be found and collected, the Tinkerers believe they can put them back together again. Imagine the possibilities of possessing a fully operational exotic alien technology. Hunt the derelicts down and bring them to the homeworld for study. Do not let them fall into the world in the hands of the other empires. Artifact can only be retrieved by repair. Okay. This one doesn't have like different alien objectives. I wonder if there's one specific main one. You go, like, the game also has random encounters. I believe those are just kind of like, imagine Skyrim, running around and there's random stuff going on. So maybe like a pirates attacking a convoy or something. That's my guess. I'm not entirely sure. As I said, I didn't really play this, but don't really have any plans to. His master's voice. The ache to reconnect with the great masters burns inside you until you cannot stand it. At first, you heard rumors of artifacts of the great masters. Then the tangible facts were pulled from the minds of heretic slaves. Now you feel you're ready to act. You must follow the clues, wherever they are, and from them come that much closer to the gods. Rules: cities must be assembled in order, or the clues must be assembled in order. Holy lands. The beginning of the scenario, each player will be given a name and location of a holy place. You must go to this place and form a colony. When you have communed with the sacred planet, the name and location of the next holy planet on your spiritual path will be revealed. So continue until you have built colonies on 5 sacred worlds. To win the game, you must hold these holy lands for 10 turns. Oh, whoops. Every scientist and species has its own political aims and agendas, but they also have religious beliefs. And a sense of the sacred, that the idea of a certain place is holy, is universal among all races, and so is the notion of spiritual pilgrimage. Hungry children. The Hivers have lost their home, and the Queen's homeworld and all her original colonies are gone, destroyed by a sun-gone supernova. Rather than accept a quick death for her children, the Queen used the last of her resources to gather ships and provisions for dozens of her strongest daughters, and now leading them to the furthest reaches of space to conquer new lands and form a new hive imperium. Hundreds of Hiver ships are coming, organized into dozens of fleets. They must colonize new worlds or face slow death in the void. Can the other 3 races beat back the Hiver incursion before they become entrenched on new worlds and turn into an unstoppable force? You kind of get the idea, like each of the races are kind of like iffy against each other, but that's what kind of like how they did with the pit. They could play the different races. Humor Lair and Tarkus defeat the Hiver fleet, and the Hiver must conquer the galaxy. Alright. Jewels of the Crown. Hivers attack all corners of the genocidal fury. The Hiver Queen has died, and her precious royal gems have gone missing. A fraction has secreted the crown jewels on a hidden world somewhere on the map. Without the crown jewels, no princess can become queen, and each Hiver race has now become a headless giant, lashing out madly in all directions. And you can see like slowly the story is progressing through these scenarios. I don't think any like story stuff happens because you can actually control what happens in the scenarios, so I don't really see it as a true like story mode. We have land grab. Destruction of the enemies is not the only path to victory. Control enough land and they will submit. That's just basically just to control a bunch of stuff. Orders of a Fallen Empire. The Emperor is dead, and the Hano Kingdom needs a new strong Vir Bente to rise up and unite the colony worlds before anything shatters into pieces. You are the Varkorn of one of the 3 strongest provincial territories and must dominate the other 2 while daring with the gutter trash upstart colonies at the outer edge of Tarkin space, and if times are not interesting enough, there have been reports of raiding parties on the Tarka colonies, and Tarkin citizens report missing. Okay. We have to look up if there's a Tarkin unit or not. I don't remember seeing one. But again, I'm not entirely sure. Progression Wars. Dominating galaxy is one thing, but what about the universe? The challenge of the Progression Wars is unique. Build up your presence in a small galaxy is normal, but be prepared to send a fleet to the galaxy next door and start the process all over again. Your fleet will grow in strength of design and bring some of your previous technology and money with you, but your opponents will get harder and harder. How long can you survive? It's kind of a neat game mode. You can zoom in, it's like, oh hey, hello, stars. The end of Flesh. The AI rebellion has loosed upon the galaxy. Now the 6 races, former foes, at one time or another must band together in order to fight the merciless children of their own technology. And as you can see, it's like I believe those are different colors of the races against the AI threat. This is the fight to the death between flesh and machine for the future of the galaxy. For the living, there can only be victory or extinction. I guess it's just called AI Rebellion. I wasn't sure if there's a specific race for it. I know you fight robots in the pit, but that's pretty cool that they have that. Like one player controls the AI and like you have other people teaming up. You could definitely have cool like little scenarios and stuff. It's just not really the game for me. But it's awesome that the way they set it up though. The Gathering! Oh hey, you have a soul? I say soul. For centuries the thinkers, the speecher, the philosopher have tried to tell us a secret. We're stronger together than we are apart. The path to galactic peace lies in unity, and to that end, he must be first to attract civilians of the very races and unite them in harmony. That's an interesting way to do it. That's like the winning from cultural in Civilization. Like, instead of fighting each other, try to get other people to visit your stuff. That's pretty cool. Main objectives, of course, civilians for varied races. Force should be applied carefully as the game ends in failure for all if any one empire is destroyed. That's another interesting thing, because in Civilization, one person could focus on cultural, but they could be completely decimated by some of the militaristic option. But the fact that they have that as one of the rules is pretty damn cool. That's definitely an interesting way to play that, and kind of changes it up. Welcome to the Soul Force competition simulation. This is where students get to test their skills with each other on a relatively level playing field. Lacking many of the X factors, and more advanced officer candidates are trained to expect and counter. I don't like how training simulation. Alright, then we have upset apes. Throwing off the lingering effects of the Hiver attack, the human race steps cautiously away from their homeworld, and runs straight into the arms of the ancient and dedicated Tarka Imperium. The scrappy humans will have to learn fast to be exceptionally clever in order to carve their own colonies from the farming outpost of an older empire, while the Tarka commander must balance the needs and demands of the great Imperium against this new problem, an upstart race of talking monkeys. Alright, let's try that. Let's do my game. See what happens when you start up a game. You can choose which side you want. I don't really care. You can set it up in different stuff like icons and profiles. We're just gonna pick random ones to start it up.
System update.
Now with this, you could zoom in. There's like the planets. We have like these little things. Just multiple little planets. Zoom all the way out. You can see the universe you're working with. There's managed fleets. This is where the design thing comes in. I don't think I really have much else right now. But as you get more, imagining as you progress in the technology tree, you get better options and you can build better fleets this way. You can do different armors. It's kind of like random stuff. And then that's weapon layout. You can change which weapons you want. Let's see if there's a tanker. Light defense platform. Oh shit. That thing. Yeah, it's just basically the idea of that, and then you can name it. The research, this is like the research tree. You can go industrial, biological, drone, star drives, warhead weapons, shield technology, power technology, torpedo weapons, energy weapons, ballistic weapons, C3, which I'm not entirely sure what that is, and xenotech. Translate English, translate Latin. Takes 240 turns. What the fuck? No, you need to. We don't need Latin over here. Oh god, I zoomed in way too far. If I just do all that. 1,000 turns. If I do that, it'll take 5,200 turns. Let's research that. Yeah.
Your word is law, Varkona. Research in this area begins now.
Only in 5,200 turns I can learn that. I'll do an end of the turn. It's like kind of objectives that are happening. Kind of message thing. There's like ingoing, outgoing, chat. You can talk to other people. Obviously AI is not going to talk back to you, but for multiplayer that works. I don't know if multiplayer works as the game anymore. Since it was GameSpy, and that shut down. Not that they have Sword of the Stars 2, I doubt it has support for multiplayer anymore. Quit the main menu, save options, set AI policy, end turn, and it gives you a slight countdown so you can click it in case, oh shit, I didn't mean to click end turn.
System update.
System update. See the turn, you can see the projected treasury of each like little people, or those are planets I think. You can see the fleets, there's no fleets right now. Explore system, no colonies, none of that because it's just the initial start of the game. Alright, just kind of want to give a general idea. It's basically turns into like a colonization, civilization type of thing. Alright, we have the cinematics and credits. What else? What I wanted to look at? Menu options. Yeah, I'll probably just do cinematics and tutorial last. I'll show off the cutscenes. I'll kind of talk during this when there's no dialogue. Just make sure I don't hit third-party content ID. I don't know if these are protected or not because it's part of the game. Who knows? I don't even hear music right now. I have everything enabled, sound-wise.
Early in the 22nd century, humanity escaped from Einstein's cage. The giant ring-shaped engines of the node drive gave us the power to leap to the nearest star at many times the speed of light. After centuries of dreaming, we were finally free to leave the cradle of our homeworld. It took us years to build the Earth's first colony ship. The Nova Maria was a symbol for all mankind. Soon it was loaded with humanity's best and brightest.
Now you gotta have like the
They
ship
prepared to
designs.
depart, ready to inherit a galaxy which we had long ago decided was devoid of intelligent life. The universe was all out there for our taking.
Oops.
Someone should have told that to the hivers.
There you have the hive units.
They came in silence. No statement of intention, no declaration of war, without even a demand for our surrender. They hit us without warning. Within seconds, our dreams of peaceful expansion were so many burning meteors falling to Earth. We barely survived the first Hiver incursion. Years later, we would find that we had faced only a small nesting fleet. We had yet to see the full power of the swarm. But the Hive was not the only threat. When we ventured forth, we soon encountered the ruthless legions of the Tarka.
I think this gives you an
eventually-
introduction to all the races.
The phantom fleets of the enigmatic Lear. And so, we learned how to build bigger, stronger ships, more powerful weapons. Humanity had to explore, expand, and even conquer, just to hold our own in a universe where weakness was extinction. In order to survive, we learned to wield the Sword of the Stars.
That's probably the original trailer. It gives you an idea, it gives you introduction to some of the races. I believe the expansions introduce new races. This is another trailer. I think this is one. I think there's two more, including this one. Imagine those are races.
We are the chosen ones, born of the divine. We are shaped in the image of the great masters, born to serve them in the infinite depths. We are warriors, wise men, fathers, masters. And this is the time of our ordeal, the Great Silence, when we will prove ourselves worthy to join the immortal gods and hear their voices once again. It took years to rise from the world of our spawning. It took decades to reap the wisdom of our first quarry. But our wiles are unlimited, and our thirst for knowledge strong. We have lain quietly in the shadows for more than a century, skulking among the darkened hulls of dead
Love this
ships,
voice.
raiding the periphery for slaves and secrets. We tear apart flesh and steel, mind and memory chip, seeking the spark of truth, seeking the gods of our birth. And always we hunger for more. The time has come. We can wait no longer for the great masters to return. Our numbers increase daily. Our children hunger. Our females lust for war. This galaxy is unworthy of its gods, overrun by ignorant, arrogant slaves, mindless insects, pompous lizards, chattering apes, blaspheming rebels. It is time to teach them all their place in a great scheme. They will learn to serve their betters or die. As it was commanded, so it shall be done. We will sweep all enemies from our path. In the darkness of this galaxy, we will forge an empire of light. We will be worthy. We will find the gods wherever they are hiding. We will end their silence and become their claws once again. Born of fire, born of steel, born of science, born of blood.
These are the closest things to cutscenes being the trailers in this game. I don't know if the second game has these or not. This is the final trailer.
Look to the skies, children of the dust, and heed my words.
Oh yeah, this
I am
trailer.
first among travelers,
Murder crew.
lord of the night sky, and leader of the clans. I am the voice of the starborn. While you crawled, we flew. While you dreamed of wings, we knew the stars. We came down to share with your ancestors, but we returned to find death. Our females slaughtered, our worlds picked over like carrion. You have laid us a banquet of sorrow. You have risen from your dark depths, your twisting tunnels, your dung-reeking cities, your pitiful nests of stone, and your fields of blood, to lay claim to the very stars. Blindly you wander, violating the tombs of my fathers, until you lose your questions upon my wives and daughters. And I say, enough. Real war is coming. The travelers will yield no longer to any who crawl, in land or sea. Find some other place to build your foul nests and fight your petty battles. These stars are sacred, and they are mine. So look to the skies, children of the dust, and see my coming. I am the dragon with 1,000 wings. My people are no longer in hiding, and now we darken your skies. Like a murder of crows.
I like that name. Whether it's in Game of Thrones or this, it's just a great name. Or even the Plastid. I think that's what it's called in Infinite. It might be the original Bioshock. Anyway, I'm gonna cut it here, and if the tutorial's connected, it wasn't too long. If it's not, then I'll see you in Sword of the Stars 2. Alright, as I was setting up the tutorial game, I noticed that each race over here, like the humans, Hyver, Tarkus, Lear, Zul, Morgi, and all that, have their own like lore set up right here. And I figured the second game was the only one that had like an encyclopedia or lore segments. But I figured I'd at the very least read this game's version and see how it progresses into the second game with its encyclopedia and all that. Alright, it's been a long... Alright, let me set up a battle real quick. Foretold Pillar. Okay. It's been a long and hard haul to the stars, but we thought we'd never make it. Just a bunch of blood-simple monkeys doomed to bite each other's tails for eternity. Well, guess what? We monkeys have something that the rest of you don't. We got the keys to the secret corridors of the universe, and we're going to use them. Where we go, you can't follow. We're going to come at you from the direction you least expect, and when you arrive, you'll find out why you don't ever kick a blood-simple monkey in the teeth. It's pretty cool. General description: humans are an air-breathing, land-based species. Base species of sentient mammals evolved from a primate line which could be traced to any tiny tree-dwelling shrew. They are highly adaptable and thrive in the wide variety of environments, but some would seem most comfortable with a limited range of temperature, gravity, and atmospheric density, which mimic the conditions on their homeworld. The discovery of the so-called subspace dimension has allowed humans propulsion engineers to take advantage of the gravitational stress fractures of the universe. The principle at work is a simple four-dimensional space-time appears to have a crystalline structure, and massive bodies such as the stars and black holes create distortion in the space-time continuum. These distortions are connected by a space-time known as subspace. In essence, the subspace is an interstellar dimension which connects one gravitational distortion to another. I'm like sitting back on my computer. Give me a second. Alright, well, I'm sitting back here and having my TV as my screen right now. So that text was like extremely small for me to read. There's no regular 720 option, so I kind of have to do like this square option. It's gonna look stretched on the recording, but it's the best way to do it, so I can still sit back and read, because there's gonna be a ton of reading. I'm just more comfortable doing that than like sitting up forward looking at a monitor. Alright, connection between the massive bodies substates are formed by the means of similar resonance frequencies between the two gravitic nodes. Okay. Causes of the resonance, not renaissance, derp, cannot be fully explained without resorting to the historic systems of star string theory. But the practical result is that the distance between any two nodes of subspace is highly compressed relative to the portions these two nodes might occupy in ordinary spacetime. A human vessel equipped with a node drive can enter and leave subspace at will, and thus travels the completely compressed distance between nodes very rapidly. When the vessel emerges from subspace again, will have traversed a great distance in a short period of time, thus effectively achieving subterminal speed. As faster than light travels possible between any two points which are connected by a fracture line. Ironic, I just played through FTL before this. Chains of nodal connection between the stars is sometimes referred to as side streams, a term coined by the first subspace traveler, Plasky Hissering. However, the phrase star stream can be somewhat misleading. Although the node connections between stars do form a sort of chain, if plotted through ordinary spacetime, and a human ship traveling in subspace will not be crossing those regions of space as a physical object. The only evidence of the ship's passing in ordinary spacetime is a series of gravitational pulses which indicate the presence of a vessel in subspace. Although a sufficiently sensitive scanner might be able to determine the mass of human fleet in motion of the number of vessels traveling together, those vessels cannot be contacted or intercepted in ordinary space-time. As all forward and maneuvering thrust aboard human vessels otherwise created by a simple mass-to-energy conversion, the principles of which are understood by starfaring races. Humans appear to have undergone several conflicting stages of evolution in their homeworld. Bipedal, they walk erect with the locking knee and hip structure, evolved to allow maximum elevation from the ground, and minimal exposure to skin's surface to direct radiation from the sun. Thus suggests a period of development from an arid, hot grassland region. However, the smooth, often hairless hide and subcutaneous fat of the human body would also suggest a water phase at some point during the evolution, when humans may have lived particularly as aquatic existence. In any case, the resulting modern human is a curious beast. Height in the adult human ranges from 100 to 200 centimeters, while mass ranges from 50 to 150 kilograms. And a variety of superficial differences can be observed in pigmentation. Since these differences constitute so little variation in DNA, there's no practical difference between one race of humans and another. Humans are divided into two sexes, males and female. There's some morphological differences between the two, but most other sentient species cannot tell the two human genders apart, since there are only minor differences in physical capacity and behavior between male and female humans. This seldom causes problems, more comedic variety. Exception to this rule would be the hivers, who seem to have natural advantage in identifying male and female members of any species, perhaps due to their sensitivity to the airborne estrogen. Hivers have been known to target females first in ship-to-ship boarding actions, which can have unpleasant psychological effects on human crews. Humans tend to form family groups based on a single breeding pair, one male, one female, and their offspring from current and past pairings. A human female can produce several offspring during the course of her breeding career. The holo-gestation and birthing of human infants can often be fatal without proper medical support. Kind of like how this is like written out as like an observing species, like trying to figure out what the humans are and what they're all about. It's kind of an interesting take on it. Due to certain particularities of human physiology and psychology, Life in the human homeworld became very unpleasant in the past industrial age. The expected lifespan of the average human being was enormously increased due to the advances in biology and medicine, but the breeding behavior of the majority of humans was not adjusted to take this into account. Many humans also refused to modify their industrial consumption and pollution. According to from the beginning of the so-called Industrial Revolution onward, humans began to very rapidly both overpopulate and environmentally devastate their own home planet. Certain unfortunate distribution of philosophies created a steadily growing number of humans with little or no access to vital resources, while others remained wealthy, overfed, and wasteful. The impoverished fringe population rapidly grew, despite the pressures of starvation, disease, and environmental toxins on their own proliferation, until they outnumbered the so-called leader of the developed world by a factor of 10. The resulting planetary wars and limited nuclear exchanges were even more gruesome and destructive than the effects of overpopulation and careless industrialization had been. A sizable percentage of the homeworld and native species were lost, as well as roughly 70% of the human population. Shit. That's a lot. During the Reconstruction Age, a philosophical shift was observed in the surviving population of humans. The newly emerging consortium governments were easily signed armistice, environmental protection accords, and peace agreements. War in general was no longer universally revered as the most valuable and noble human endeavors, as had often been the case in previous centuries. Tendency towards cooperation and mutual support was encouraged. While the discovery of the node drive, the motive for future cooperation among the various human consortia was found, and the available resources of several governments were pooled to fund the research and development of the first interstellar spaceship. Christened the Nova Maria, the ship made several successful node jumps to and from nearby star systems before the first deep space colony was planned. As the Nova Maria boarded its passengers for launch, intent on the first adventure of space colonization for the human species, tragedy struck. A hybrid nesting fleet consisting of a dreadnought and several support vessels arrived in the human home system. The planetary defenses of the human race, which had never before encountered another starfaring species, were knowledgeable and easily brushed aside by superior firepower. Nova Maria was destroyed in the first volley, with all hands lost, and the human homeworld was bombarded from space for 48 hours afterward, resulting in a massive devastation and catastrophic loss of life. Only the legacy humans' suicidal past eventually saved their homeworld from complete destruction. After nearly 36 hours of struggle, the curators of the planet's formal ICBM arsenal finally managed to reactivate the remaining stock of ancient missiles, which had been stored for decommission in the silos of North American and Asian continents. A total of 3,000 fusion and fission bombs were launched at the descending hybrid fleet, destroying its fully complement of destroyers and causing serious damage to its dreadnought. Thereafter, the remains of the hybrid fleet left orbit and limped onto parts presently unknown. Rebuilding from this devastation had taken the human race several years. Although the human world is now lightly populated and there's little pressure to expand, certain particular areas of human psychology has re-emerged from their slumber. The human race has relearned of its historical taste for war, and the sole force, the united human military, never lacks for willing volunteers. Most human spacers have built bitter memories of the hybrid attack, and are old enough to have lost friends and family in the fires, floods, and chaos that followed. Accordingly, although the official model of the Space Corps is pure ad astrata, through hardship to stars, the unofficial model of the humans in space is Ransima and Sincera. Payback is a bitch. I like the lore in this game, it's pretty cool. First space traveler, Blasky Hissing, was the solar physicist assigned to the Sol Prima research station. Earlier in the year 2371, Blasky was assigned to perform first penetrating scan of Sol's deep core using experimental high-energy resonance beam. One of the station's hardened research pods had been fitted with a ring-shaped scanning array. The pod was launched from the station with Blasky's aboard to operate the controls, while the rest of the station's 18-man crew eagerly monitored their screens. That moment Blasky's scan was initiated, however, a tiny research bell had disappeared from view and was no longer detectable by any means available to the Sol Prima monitoring system. Fearing that the scientists had suffered a catastrophic equipment failure or lost power, the station quickly dispatched a rescue team to search for his bell and the previous scanning array, hoping to recover the man and his equipment before the decaying orbit could drop both into the sun's corona. For several minutes of frantic scan and search, Slow Prima received a feeble signal from Blasky's pod. The scientist's calm voice was heard from the distance of over 800 million kilometers in less than 10 seconds. He had been miraculously transported from a close orbit of Sol to a close orbit around the nearby gas Jupiter. For the next 2 hours, his team of solar scientists desperately attempted to find some means of reaching and rescuing their comrade. Blasky made a series of burst transmissions to the nearby Stormwatch probe in Jupiter's orbit. Full-length recording the transmissions is still played to first-year students of known mechanics. It can be a highly emotional experience for those who have never heard them before. As Blasky's probe slowly descended to Jupiter's atmosphere, scientists gave a highly detailed account of his experience of subspace, describing the gravitational current which seemed to pull him away from the Sol's orbit with blinding speed. He expressed his regret in having expended so much fuel after fighting this astounding gravitational pull and speculated that his pod might have traveled much further had he not been engaged thrust to fight the current within the star stream. When Blasky could add no further detail to his description of subspace, he calculated the volume of fuel he had left. He had expanded, resulting the gravitational flux and the distance and direction he had traveled. Set a conclusion that the force acting upon his ship had been the gravitational pull of the nearby star Wolf 359. Later experiments of subspace travel proved him correct, as Wolf 349 was the nearest node in Sol's subspace chain. Carefully rechecking his data, including the level of energy he used to initiate his solar scan, Blasky ejected his data core within the ship tracking beacon attached. He died several minutes later in the crushing depths of Jupiter's liquid hydrogen sea. The amazing discovery and tragic death of this remarkable scientist became the planet-wide imperatives for a return to manned space exploration. It's often argued in the months immediately following that the budget cuts that have forced ISA to place an unmanned probe in Jupiter's orbit rather than a manned research facility had cost Blasky Al-Hussein his life. Time to read the Hiver. We are the children, the faithful sons of the Hive. Our way is patience, our way is strength. We do not rush as others do to devour the universe. The Hive grows slowly, but its grip is strong. What is ours and will not be taken from us easily. Raise your hand against the least of us, and you'll face the fury of all. We are all brothers, and the love we share is stronger than death. Human species call these species Hivers, and more informally buggers, because they resemble this to the countless insect species found on Earth. Size notwithstanding, Hivers do have many features in common with terrestrial insects, especially when it comes to social organization and physical appearance. Nonetheless, they are a fully sapient spacefaring race. Hivers may be encountered in any part of the galaxy. The location of the Hiver homeworld is presently unknown. They are highly adaptable and are able to thrive in a wide variety of environments. However, Hivers can colonize worlds which many other races would find inhospitable due to low gravity or atmospherical density. Hivers move through space using a combination of slower than light and instantaneous transport technology. A fleet of Hiver ships, driven by the standard STL engines, began by traveling great distances the hard way. It may take them months or years, moving at sub-relativistic speed to reach their destination. Once they arrive, however, the Hivers quickly set up a massive ring-shaped teleportation device. Should other Hiver ships choose to follow, they could travel instantly to the newly erected gate from any other gate in the Hiver Empire. Despite appearance, Hivers are not insects in the physical sense. They are much larger than any terrain insect, ranging from 40 to 250 kilograms of mass and from 90 to 450 centimeters in height. They do have 6 limbs, but the upper 4 are equipped with opposable digits. Most Hivers have pairs of wings on the dorsal surface of their bodies, but they seem to be vestigial and used for flying. Hivers' body is partially covered with chitin, but the shell is not an exoskeleton. Hivers have an interior skeleton full of array of internal organs and a circulatory system similar to that of a terrestrial bird or mammoth. The chitin is not used for tissue support, it is adapted to serve them as armor. Some scientists speculate that the bright colors and patterns of the Hiver's body also convey a great deal of social information to other Hivers. In space, Hivers tend to live and move in large family groups. All the members of any given Hiver fleet are usually related to one another by birth. The Hiver species is divided into 3 physical and social classes: the warrior, the worker, the warrior, and the breeder. All 3 classes are very different from one another. They might appear to be different species to the casual observer. Worker bug looks, thinks, and behaves much differently than a warrior or breeder bug, and it's sometimes difficult to believe that all 3 bugs could have hatched from the same cluster of eggs. Worker is the most common type of Hiver, making around 70% of the species. The average height of a hiver worker is 150 centimeters, and they generally mass around 70 kilograms. Worker bugs do not have sexual organs or any psychological quirks related to breeding. They are intelligent, sensitive, and curious, and is prone to interest in art, science, and culture as the average member of any other sentient species. Workers create the vast majority of hiver art and literature. They also make up the vast majority of hivers engage in science, technical, and academic fields. Workers can pursue almost any occupation in society. They'll fill their ranks in all walks of life, from merchants, from street sweepers, to architects, farmers, and miners. Regardless of the profession they pursue, however, the efforts of any given worker are always directed to one purpose: to strengthen, to protect, unify, or glorify its family, and serve the interest to its mother. Warriors are the second most common type of hiver, making up around 25% of the species. Of all hivers, the warriors have the largest variety when it comes to superficial physical appearances. They can range from 50 centimeters to 250 centimeters in height, and have super light bodies and massive armored frames. They also support a wide variety of shit and adaptations, including markings, which may be super bright or subtle camouflage in any kind of terrain. Warrior bugs are generally credited to serve a specific function. They are tailored during gestation to perform a specific task as adults. Various features of the warrior are subject to change: size, strength, toughness, and thickness of its shell, resistance to radiation, extremes of heat and cold. Some warriors are even adopted to be able to withstand vacuum for limited periods of time. Warriors are generally engaged in high casualty professions: deep space diving, mining, Arctic exploration, and toxic waste disposal, and are generally handled by warrior bugs, as all their tasks involve similar levels of personal risk. Accordingly, it is no accident that the warriors, although rare in hiver society at large, make up a disproportionate percentage of personnel aboard spacefaring vessels. Warriors do not have sexual organs, but their bodies produce a powerful array of hormones, making them far more prone to aggressive ambition and powerful mood swings. Their infrastructures are more insular than any other hiver class. Warriors often form secret societies, join dueling academies, or participate in athletic contests to channel their aggression. They tend to receive less formal education than workers do, but far more vocational and martial training. Like workers, warrior bugs are loyal to the families, but they're frenetically obedient to their mothers. Aware from the earliest childhood that they have been born to die for the queen, they consider it an honor and privilege to do so. Breeders. Within any given hiver family, a small community of breeders, female hiver or princess, and a quatorria male princes will rule over a large number of warrior and worker bugs. The princess of any given hive is the absolute ruler and reason for being. Her workers and warriors will be loyal to the death and devote themselves to her welfare in the entirety of their lives. Workers and warriors of the hive is simultaneously her children, her employees, her servants, her subjects, and her zealous cult of personality. That was a weird beeping. Hiver princess is many times larger than a standard hiver. Depending on her care and feeding, she can grow to a height of 400 centimeters and a mass nearly 400 kilograms. Her wings and chitin are largely ornamented and often will be cut or painted to enhance her natural beauty. A hiver princess can produce any number of hiver eggs, especially if she has regular access to a male. The eggs she produces are largely generic, and when they leave her body, if care is given, she gives them during infancy, that determines their futures. Variations of light, heat, and nutrition produce a variety of changes in the developing hiver, allowing its mother to not only determine whether the resulting offspring will be a worker, warrior, or breeder, but assign a number of other physical and mental characteristics. One thing a hiver princess cannot do is reproduce herself. Although she can create any number of workers, warriors, and male breeders, no princess can lay an egg which will develop to another princess. Power and privilege of birthing female hivers is reserved for the High Queen, a mystical and legendary female breeder who rules the entire species from hiver homeworld. Hiver males are somewhat similar to the female counterparts, though they're somewhat smaller. They average around 3 to 50 centimeters in height and mass around the neighboring 250 kilograms. Physically speaking, they can reproduce, recognized by their size and extremely bright colors of their chitin, their length and strength of their wings, and their sharp warrior-like projections on the second pair of limbs, so-called dueling blades. Socially speaking, a male breed is essentially a free agent. Like the warrior and worker of the bugs of his family, his devotion to any one hive is not strong. The reasons for this are obvious. A female hiver will generally seek out males which are not her own sons for breeding purposes. Although a hiver princess can reproduce with males hatched from her own eggs, it gives no other option This practice would quickly lead to stagnation, both socially and genetically, if it were a common place. Breeder males, accordingly, are the only hivers who are socially and psychology capable of moving from one hive to another at will. They're more self-interested than any other class of hiver and far weaker attachments to their mothers and families of origin than would be a normal worker or warrior. Prince's chief loyalty is to himself and his breeding partner, and the hive to whom he is father. Highly competitive, career-oriented, and motivated to succeed, a hiver princes seek out positions of authority and opportunities to lead, performing in public, or otherwise draw attention to themselves. Prince's ability to draw attention to himself and his achievements makes him most desirable mate, and puts a premium on his services. Oops. Since heredity in the hive year is based 60% on the contribution of the male, Prince who's cunning, strong, gifted, or beautiful can become a prize that many hives will vie to win. Savage wars have been fought over the kidnapping or direction of valuable princes. Oh, the beeping was my phone with the low battery. That explains it. Wars are common among hivers. The hiver military impulse is generally driven by population pressure or the urge for supremacy. Because each hiver princess can produce countless offspring per year, population of hivers in any one place can spike very quickly, leading to intense competition for space and resources. Hive under pressure has one or two options. They can cull their own population or eliminate the competition. Although there are more than 30 words for suicide in hiver language, many hiver families choose to go on the warpath rather than institute any other population control measures. Wars of this kind are grim and brutal battles to death, which full-time and resources of all hive members devoted to destroying the enemy hive and its princesses. Occasionally, an ambitious hiver princess was taken in her head to become the high queen of her species. The global wars of dominion in hiver history, many had some assumed technology status over time. Destruction and loss of life associated with the battle for the throne has often left the planet almost completely depopulated, with only few exhausted clans left alive in the rubble. Due to quarrels and hiver's physiology, the death is not necessarily the end to any given hiver's life. A great deal of short and long-term memory stored within crystalline form in a hiver's brain case. These chemicals can be extracted intact for up to 72 hours after death with the help of a princess who passes these chemicals through her own digestive tract, and the memory of the fallen hiver can be injected into the thorax of a freshly laid egg. So result in a newborn hiver which has many of the memories, skills, and experiences of the hiver who died. Form and living reincarnation central to the spiritual beliefs of a hiver population who conceive of the divine as a female hiver, consisting of devouring and renewing the universe. It's also useful in preserving valuable skills and giving hivers access to information which would otherwise be lost. However, the practice has led to quite a few unfortunate incidents, which some of the hivers who had been exposed to a lethal plague would carried back to the queen for renewal, resulting in a predictable disaster for the whole family. However, due to the extremely strong emotional attachment that most hivers have to their mothers, a great deal of their art, sculpture, and literature is devoted to glorifying their mothers, extended families, and ancestors. A great deal of their engineering and architecture is also based upon the female form, or on scenes vaguely remembering from the hatching period. Hivers seem to find curvilinear shapes comforting and pleasing to the eye, and often design storage compartments and living quarters which remind them of geometrical egg chambers they slept as infants. Building of ships are sometimes highly suggestive of the female hiver's body, made by direct portraits of a given princess. New alien monstrosities can speak in a civilized tongue, all this would be relatively easy to explain. We Tarka are simple people. When all is said is done, we cleave the universe its clean straight lines, we show our faces in battle rather than in our tails. And what we want is ours by right of superior arms and tactics. If that is the universe, well, so be it. Have at you, and join the fray as joyously as we do. After all, my friends, war is nothing personal. That definitely sets them up. Come on, Otto, thank you. Tarkers are a reptilian species sharing any outward physical characteristics of the terrestrial lizards. Although their internal structures are highly evolved brains are very different than anything seen in the reptile. Excuse me. Reptile species of Earth. The appearance is none less than the variety of derogatory nicknames among human spacers who commonly refer them as lizards or crocs. How much is known of the origins of the Tarka, but scientists have speculated that the species must have evolved in a dense arboreal environment because they retain many of their features we still associate with tree-dwelling species. They can live in a variety of gravities and temperature zones, but they seem to form warmer worlds for their larger colonies. Their culture is very ancient and remarkably stable in the long term, allowing for hundreds of thousands of years of recorded history, and over 500 years as a spacefaring race. Tarka's ship schematics and weapon systems fall within standard parameters. The Tarkesian warp drive, however, is a unique technological achievement. No other species has mastered the technology of faster-than-light travel, and the secrets of the Tarkesian warp engine are jealously guarded. The basic principle that works is the Tarkesian faster-than-light system appears to be the generation of warp field, an envelope. Good, Brave Frontier crashed. An envelope of force which surrounds the body of a Tarkesian ship, while within the envelope, the ship is essentially a non-event in space-time, having very limited interaction with the standard 4 dimensions of the continuum. Once a warp engine of a Tarkesian ship is fired, the normal physical laws governing mass, energy, and acceleration no longer apply to that ship. Accordingly, a Tarkesian vessel can achieve superluminal speeds and travel at these speeds for any distance. Its range limited only by the available fuel for thrust, and by the available power for the generation of the warp envelope. Come on, Great Frontier. The external characteristic of the Tarka race point towards an origin among the reptiles. They are as far removed from the lizard-like ancestors as humans are from the tree shrews from which they evolved. Tarkas have cold scales in the bodies and the patterns of thickness which vary with the individual, although males traditionally have thicker and tougher scales than the females, especially as they grow older. Tarkas have 3 sets of eyelids and claw-like nails on both fingers and feet, which can become quite thick and sharp if they are allowed to grow. Tarkas have 5 digits and opposable thumb in their hands, and their feet are also prehensile. The toes are muscular, shorter in the male than the female, capable of manipulating objects and striking with significant force. Standard practice for a Tarkesian martial artist to use his or her tail in combat. Internally, Tarkas bear little resemblance to terrestrial reptilians. They have a very large and complex brain, warm blood, and an advanced circulatory system. Tarkas has 5 chambers, 4 engage in standard respiration, while 1 is activated by the Tarkas adrenal system. Its auxiliary chamber rapidly flutters when Tarkas fight or flight reflexes are engaged, pumping a complex stew of chemicals and stimulants into the bloodstream. These act as all aspects of Tarka physiology, doubling or trebling the speed at which nervous impulses are transmuted, greatly dampening the feedback associated with pain or injury, profoundly affecting brain function, filling the body with blood and hormones. The resulting battle fury is legendary, that renders an adult Tarka extremely dangerous within the little drum that is beating. Tarkas are omnivores, able to consume and digest a wide variety of plant and animal foodstuffs. They enjoy a natural lifespan about 100 years, barring injury or disease. Tarkas have 2 genders and a standard mode of sexual reproduction. Adult female Tarka produces an unfertilized pearl egg within her body at standard intervals, and the male does not fertilize this egg. It passes from her body. She disposes of it. See sidebar A, ladies' favor. Fertilization of Tarka eggs occurs in utero. Once fertilized in the egg will remain within the mother's body for several weeks, forming an extremely dense mass of compressed nutrients and tough, thick, leathery outer skin. Thereafter, the egg passes from the female's body and begins an independent cycle of growth. If tended properly, the infant will hatch from its egg in approximately 18 to 24 months. Target females average 120 to 180 centimeters in height and weigh from 60 to 100 kilograms. They reach their full adult size within 20 years of hatching and maintain roughly the same dimensions throughout their lives. Tarka males, by contrast, can go through 2 distinct phases of growth and development. Standard development from egg to adult, which their female counterparts undergo. The second stage of maturity, which begins later, triggered by a special dietary regime. Tarkas refer to the secondary growth cycle as the change. Not all Tarka males undergo this change, in fact. It's estimated that only 1 in 1,000 Tarka males ever reaches this phase of development. When the change occurs, however, a male Tarka undergoes a profound physical and psychological transformation which affects every aspect of life. The production of sex hormones in his body increases, which causes him to develop a broad spectrum of sexual traits. First, he becomes fertile, although he has been able to form as a sexual being from early adolescence. It's not until his change that he begins producing viable sperm, becomes capable of fertilizing an egg. Along with his primary changes in reproductive capacity, he develops a host of secondary sexual characteristics which signal his availability to females and enable him to complete vigorous for mates. Jesus, they go into fucking detail with these. Jeez. It's crazy. His physical size increases enormously. It may grow up to 50 additional centimeters in height, as mass is likely to double. Some senior males may weigh 200 kilograms or more. His vocal cords thicken and his voice becomes louder, deeper, and more resonant. The color, arrangement, and thickness of the scales will change radically, often forming entirely new marking patterns. His personality is substantially altered as well. Generally, he becomes more aggressive, extroverted, ambitious, and prone to intense emotional outbursts and mood swings. The hormones that a mature male exudes has a variety of psychological effects on Tarkas. Younger males who have not undergone the change seem to find their senior counterparts extremely magnetic. They are docile and cooperative towards seniors and easily influenced by their charismatic leadership. By contrast, other senior males become immediately hostile and competitive towards a male with their own structure or stature, reaching automatically every single maturity with anger. The rival's voice, coloring, bearing, and attitudes will be found offensive at almost cellular level. These two are brought within range of another hormonal signatures. The effect increases manyfold. Put two senior males in one room and a physical alteration is almost sure to result. Female Tarkas, by contrast, have a less intense emotional reaction towards senior males. While they find seniors personally, professionally, and sexually attractive, they do not mirror the docility of their younger male counterparts. Culturally speaking, female Tarkas tend to view all male Tarkas, both young or old, with a certain amount of prejudice, regarding them as emotionally unstable and prone to poor judgment. However, the ability of the senior male Tarka to command and control his junior is very useful in politics and military and business affairs. Most female Tarkas are inclined to harness and direct this power rather than suppress it. Tarka society is extremely stratified, with many castes and many tiers of hierarchy in every walk of life. Reproductive viability for Tarka males is a privilege and a high premium, at a price for which every junior male desires. Unfortunately, achieving the change is often difficult for Tarka males who have not been born into the family with great wealth and power. Reproductive viability carries a high premium, and many females must cooperate in order to raise one male to full maturity. Accordingly, males who cannot buy their way into this favored state must earn it, and are highly motivated through success in their careers. Male Tarkas are discriminated against the majority of the educated professions. They are unlikely to rise high in any field which does not involve a great deal of creative passion, personal risk, or violence. Although they are not forbidden to become diplomats, scientists, technicians, or academics, they are subjected to a great deal of sexual prejudice, and it is difficult for them to be taken seriously by their entrenched female counterparts. By contrast, the sizability and majority of Tarkas in high-risk physical pursuits are males, common soldiers, firefights, pilots, spicers, miners, etc. The same is true as many creative and artistic fields where the stereotype of the impassioned male Tarka is not considered a drawback. Ladies' favor. The rarity of senior males among the Tarka population has become some interest to human biologists, who for many years could not understand the process which an average Tarka male could become a senior. For years after first contact, these questions remain unanswered. Why did so few Tarka males ever achieve this change, and those who did, why did some undergo some change so early in life, while others waited literally decades longer to achieve the same physical prowess? The change was a random event and visited only a tiny percentage of the male population. Why was it so common that members of the highest caste and less often achieved by the lower caste Tarkas? Was the caste system based on genetic tendency to produce more viable mates? And if this was so, why are the male Tarkas from humbler oranges able to achieve the change so readily after they made some noteworthy contribution to society? Was there some correlation between the social recognition these Tarkas achieved and the production of male source hormones? Due to the sexual taboo surrounding the open discussion of the change and its triggering mechanism, it took years to find the answers to these questions, and the key to understanding it was finally discovered not in the laboratory but in the library. The answer was revealed when our linguists were finally able to translate the Tarka gutter dialects. A great wealth of pornographic literature had been written in these lower caste languages over thousands of years, and the sizability majority of the fantasy scenarios of Tarka pornography were directly concerned with the change and its aftermath, of course. The mechanism by which Tarka males achieve the change is simple. They must eat the unfertilized eggs of Tarka females. Because these eggs are not personal, her personal and highly sacred property. Because all Tarka females are aware of the prize that their eggs represent, no female will relinquish an egg to a male without a reason. If she doesn't have a worthy male available at her end with her egg cycle, female Tarka will simply eat the egg herself. The act of giving an egg to males in war for achievements or for services rendered, sometimes referred to as more civilized circles, but always obliquely. Act carries a delicate euphemistic name, Shal McTork, or the lady's favor. No data is available on how many eggs a male target must consume in order to trigger the change. There's some evidence that the onset of the change may vary with the individual. However, it's obvious that... Oh, looked away for a sec. That a single egg or even several is not sufficient to trigger the transformation. It's far more likely that the change is brought on by a fairly steady diet of eggs over a significant period of time. It's also apparent that when the male target consumes even a single unfertilized egg, exposed fertility chemicals consumed has an immediate powerful effect on his body and mind. All authors willing to discuss the subject describe the consumption egg as a static, almost psychedelic experience, immediately desirable if it does not lead to immediately onset of maturity. Once the mechanism of the chamber is revealed, the behavior of the lower caste and less affluent target males far more easily understood. Their lives could be seen as never-ending quest for reproductive viability and all the privileges that go with it. Their change is an important goal for many male. Their willingness to accept great personal risk is balanced by what they perceive as the possibility of great personal gain. Achieving the change is an important goal for any male target, but only 1 in 1,000 are able to ever become a father. Under the circumstances, male targets who are not born into wealth or power are extremely motivated to prove their worth to females as surrounding them and to achieve as much wealth and status as possible. Targets remain in egg phase of development for a long time. The infant target gestates within a protective shell for a period of almost 2 years between fertilization and hatching. During a substantial portion of his gestation period, the target infant within the egg is self-aware and alert to its environment, responsive to stimuli and communicative with the outside world. Because the target infant is sensitive and aware during its prolonged period of confinement, the care and stimulation to egg-bound targets is considered very important. Accordingly, incubation academies and ovitariums are a long-standing tradition in target society. Many fertilized eggs are handed over to ovitarium the weeks of being laid. The regime provided by any given ovitarian and will vary accordingly to the professional and caste applications of the parents, as well as their financial and social positions. Certain prestigious incubation academies are reserved for eggs for the highest-ranking and wealthiest tarkas, while they are considered very desirable for those with militaristic service, academic excellence, or artistic achievement in their futures. There are often waiting lists for the most exclusive ovitariums, and many secondary education programs will not accept candidates for gestate ovitarium for the property and standing. In any ovitarium, professionals attend to the physical needs of egg, training it often and maintaining the proper course of heat and light. The developing hatchling is also provided with a great deal of intellectual and social stimulation. However, target hatchlings are able to perceive light and movement through the shell casing, which becomes increasingly translucent as they grow. And they can hear a full range of sounds. Primary education during an egg phase includes a wide variety of interactive games, songs, stories, and conversations and exercises. With developing eggs in contact with both their adult caregivers and the other infants and nearby eggs, occasional visits by the parents are usually encouraged. The parents return to claim their offspring during the hatching ceremony, a ritualized graduation event which marks the target's emergence into the world and his or her exit from the safety and security of an egg. Though they cannot respond verbally to caregivers during gestation, most target hatchlings respond by stimuli by knocking on the shell from within. Ovitarium workers are throughout history have taught infant targets to use this form of communication. Over and many thousands of years, Morse-like eggnog code has become a language in and of itself. The eggnog code is in fact the only language which is universal to all tarkas who otherwise speak with a wide variety of planetary and regional caste dialects as adults. Accordingly, the EKC is commonly used in fashion-like communications throughout the Tarkan Empire. It contains a vocabulary of approximately 4,000 words, roughly understood by translating every member of the species' life in the Tarka fleet. Tarka military hierarchy is unusual in Tarka society, and that the vast majority of soldiers, pilots, officers are male Tarkas, while the majority of the commissioned officers and graduates are from the elite academies are female. With an operating fleet, this lays a dynamic whereby almost 90% of the commissioned officers are females. Single female or small, tightly knit cadre of females is often in charge of the entire crew of immature target males, who are highly motivated both personally and professionally distinguish themselves in combat. As an example, a typical crew manifest of a Tarkesian destroyer would include a female officer carrying a rank of captain, a pair of immature males at the helm and navigation communication posts, female technician officer at the engine room, and 4 to 6 male gunners. In a large vessel, the technical officer would have several younger males under her command, possibly a junior or female engineer. The command staff on the bridge would include the female commander and a small cadre of junior officers who are either less experienced females or male NCOs who have risen in the rank due to distinguished service. By contrast, authority positions outside of the command deck or the drive room are far more likely to be occupied by experienced male officers than by females. Reserved for a female target to acquire the experience necessary to become a gunnery sergeant, for example. The hierarchy of targets as sex-based positions of authority reduces the highly effective combat units, and so as long as the officers are always present to keep their men under control and working together. Officers on board any ship are highly prized for this reason. The command module of any Tarkesian vessel will be more heavily armored than any other part of the ship. Protecting the command staff is not only desirable for personal and social reasons. To the junior male crew, it also helps avoid the inevitable chaos which results when a typical Tarkesian crew complement is left over to its own devices. Junior males without leadership are rarely able to establish a clear chain of command. System organization would have a tendency to break down if senior males are not available in the higher ranks of fleet command. Of course, senior males are accordingly promoted for distinguished service and serve a necessary function when it's necessary to group larger members of ships and personnel. Ergo, the vast majority of commissioned officers below a rank of colonel are females. And the highest ranking officer in line of any given battle almost be a senior male. In combat, a few senior commands quick and absolute obedience in his image and sound of his voice is sufficient to keep several ships organized and acting on his order. Singers and part of the great song, so too are you. Why then do you bring war to the Lear? Can you not hear the mind scream when the black void crushes breath and worth from a living shell? Why do you bring us the music of blood, of pain, of fire, and death? Why do you come to these waters carrying death in your mouth? How many of you must we kill in order to be at peace? The Lear are an air-breathing aquatic species. They bear strong resemblance to the extinct cetaceans on Earth. Cetaceans, whatever. I don't care. They are the result of a long-term process of environmental change and ice age lasting millions of years. Initially allowed the development of a million species on the isolated tropical islands and huge ice shields of their homeworld. But eventually, an extended warming period resulted in the planet less than 10% surface above water. The vast majority of land-dwelling species returned to the sea, including the early ancestors of the Lear. The Lear have not been a star-faring species for long. Up until 150 years ago, the Lear were a peaceful race with limited technology. Various Arganian and nomadic cultures operated within the rich waters of their homeworld, and war is virtually unknown to them. Although they had not developed far into the scientists of architecture or ballistics, some Lear societies are extremely advanced in bioengineering and aquatic architecture, volcanic engineering, and metallurgy. They were conquered and enslaved by another starfaring race, whom they learned to call the Suul'ka. The Suul'ka established several lucrative industries on Myr, the Lyrian homeworld, and the force marched the Lyrians through the Industrial Revolution by employing them as slaves in mines, factories, and manufacturing facilities. Suul'ka are the facility you're going into the pit as a Suul'kan facility, and I think that's those like worm thingies that you fight at the start. I don't think much is known about them. Or maybe more, I'll tell you in the Lear. After several decades of abuse, realizing that the greed and rapacity of the Suul'ka would destroy the aquatic environment of their homeworld completely, the Lear rebelled against their early masters. The war was remarkably bloody in the early stages, but finally ended when the Lear unleashed a bioweapon tailored to Suul'ka physiology on Myr. It's impossible at this point to say what agent the Lear may have used, or what vectors that followed. We only know the resulting disease was so virulent and lethal that it appears to quickly spread beyond the colony and completely eradicated the Suul'ka, at least from that sector of space. Oh, okay, so that would explain why we're going down like a Suul'kan facility and there's not many there. There's like the little worms and dogs and stuff, but that could just be like remnants of them. The current state of Lyrian technology has resulted in a successful rebellion. Former slaves of the Suul'ka quickly absorbed the abandoned technology of their masters and have adapted the old drives, guns, and orbital elevators to their own use. Driven by natural curiosity and desire to preempt any further assaults of the stars, the Lyrian have now begun exploring space. Lyrian ships of Learing ships of the line have a very high mass to size ratio, as their ships must be filled with super oxygenated liquid medium to allow the Lear to breathe and move freely. Fortunately, the unusual system of propulsion employed by the Learing fleet allows it to compensate for the colossal mass of the vessels. The Lear use an inertialess stutter drive, which moves through space by teleporting the entire ship in tiny spatial increments of a millimeter or so. The implications of this drive system are many. For example, the Learing ship does not use thrust to accelerate. Decelerate and maneuver allows for the mass of the Learing ship to be a non-issue, as the ship never develops the inertia of a body in motion, it simply changes the space-time coordinates. The speed of a Learing vessel is determined by the number of teleports per second that its engine can perform. It's not difficult for the Lear to achieve relativistic speed in open space, but the stutter drive has a distinct disadvantage when operating in a gravity well. Any object massive enough to cause a large enough space-time distortion, be it a planet, star, or black hole, can severely slow the movement of a Learian ship. The Lear are an unusual species in more than one. Their bodies are sleek and dynamic, allowing for fast movement in water. Although they appear to be completely smooth, their skins are in fact coated with a layer of dense, fine fur, patterns and colors of which vary with the individual. They bear young, and all members of the species are hermaphroditic, possessing both male and female sex organs. The majority of Lear are capable of both fertilizing as a male or bearing young as a female, but only the very oldest Lear can do both at once. It's normally impossible for a Lear to impregnate as a male while carrying an offspring itself. The newborn Lear is very small, less than a half meter in length and weighing only 8 to 10 kilograms. By the time they reach the age of majority, after a period of roughly 50 years, the standard Lear will be around 3 meters long and weigh approximately 120 kilograms. There seems to be no natural end to the potential lifespan of any given Lear, and throughout their lives, the Lear never stop growing. Some observers have reported sightings of elder Lear over 60 meters long, massing many tons. The most unusual feature of the Learian race is not the shape of their bodies, however, but the power of their minds. Lears do not have opposable digits, tentacles, or any other physical means of manipulating objects. They employ a limited form of telekinesis instead. A deaf Lear can use several tools at once and can operate many simple machines simultaneously. Some concentration, they can also hurl objects with astonishing force, and the spear was a traditional hunting weapon among the Lear for centuries. Although they have a large, light-sensitive eyes, the frequency range of a Learian vessel is limited. They have very refined sense of taste and this physical array of sound-producing and sound-receiving equipment, however, which more than compensate for the lack of sight. And Learian echo technology is good enough to allow Lear to draw very sophisticated schematics of any machine or device simply by singing to it and reading the sound waves that bounce back. Lear communicate largely by telepathic means, and although they do have some very rudimentary sound signals that convey strong but simple emotions, being startled, amused, frightened, angry, etc. Culturally speaking, the Lear have a strong pacifist streak and inclined to avoid violence. Up until recently, the very notion of war was unknown to them. They did not war among themselves, historically had some very difficult grasping concepts like conquest or understanding why such a thing would be desirable. Because of empathetic and telepathic abilities, the Lear are always keenly aware of suffering of others. They take no joy in causing pain, fear, or agony. They revere life and harmony and abhor needless death or destruction. Nonetheless, they also value their own lives, and over the past 2 centuries they have come to embrace survival as a necessary virtue. The Lear are extremely curious and quickly learn. They have made astounding strides of technology as various kinds in a very short period of time. They are masters of back engineering, the combination of kinetic tool use, and their ability to form 3-dimensional schematics of any machine without having to assemble it have proven to be powerful advantages. And although most of the weapons in their arsenal are easily recognizable, the unique character of their species does tend to show in their battle tactics. They have a tendency to encircle the enemies, forming an attack ring which allows them to assault a large target from several sides at once. This analogous to the standard treatment of predatory species on their homeworld, which are dispatched in similar fashion. They will almost always target enemies' energies if possible, not only to spare the lives of the crew, but to preserve any useful technology or data that might be gained from undamaged remains of the ship. The reverence for life has given them a strong aversion for high explosive weapons, and they dislike the indiscriminate bombardment of planets, which, when Lear attack, they strike with surgical precision. They achieve elder status after living for more than 300 years. At this point, they are over 5 meters in length and usually weigh over 200 kilograms. Lear ever reach this vulnerable age generally retire from any profession which might put them personally at risk, and adopt a monastic-like lifestyle. In general, these days are spent in contemplating the mysteries of the universe, composing songs and poems, maintaining the oral tradition of the species, and introducing the young in matters of ethics, morality, and proper conduct as a sentient being. No Lyrian philosopher is ever taken seriously before the age of 400. Any given elder will usually be surrounded by a cloud of younger Lyr who listen to songs, ask questions, and telepathically explore the complexity and subtleties of the elder's mind. This period of swimming alongside is considered a vital necessary part of any young person's education. The aged are highly revered in all Lyrian subcultures, and younger Lyr would gladly sacrifice their own lives or embrace great personal risk to protect an elder from any possible harm. Their ancestors are living treasures in their eyes. A sizable number of Lyr spacers regard the service as a duty to the species and a volunteer to scout the empty sea in order to protect the elders who must remain behind on Mer. In recent years, a revolution of thought and communication has occurred among the Lyr. Up to very recently, Lyr only had limited notions of the spoken language. For eons, vocalizations existed only to aid in perception, convey emotion, or for aesthetic appreciation. Traditional Lyrian song is an art form which is a character of both music and painting. The words or lyrics of ancient songs are received telepathically by the audience. The challenge of commanding and controlling a fleet of starships, however, has forced the Lyr to develop new modes of communication. A new class of Lyrian singers has recently emerged, and now they sing an entirely new type of song. These Lyr can now shape sequences of gross physical sounds which are meant to broadcast by mechanical means. They can be heard at far greater distances than even the strongest telepathic shout can travel. Once they have developed the concept of a fleet song, they created a code of physical sounds which analyze to concepts and strings ideas which normally be spoken telepathically. They were easily able to grasp the concept of spoken language among other non-telepathic species. Since most of the species that come in contact do not possess even the most rudimentary telepathy, they began to assemble a cadre of Lyrian specialists who dedicate their lives learning the fleet songs of other species. These specially trained linguists communicate verbally with other species and develop software to translate any spoken language in Lyrian fleet song. There's no traditional word for the profession among the Lyr, but they have invented a new job a title for the job. Members of the diplomatic corps are now called singers to the deaf. Time has come. We can wait no longer for the great master's return. Our members grow daily. Our children must have meat. The galaxy is unworthy of its gods, overrun by ignorant, arrogant slaves. It's time to teach them their place in the great scheme. They will learn to serve their battles or die as we're commanded. So it shall be done. We will sweep all our enemies from our path, and the darkness of this galaxy will forge an empire of light. Born of fire, born of steel, born of science, born of blood. The Zool of a race spacefaring marsupials, human spacers, have dubbed the species as the Rippers for a number of reasons, not the least the savagery of their attacks on the Soul Force colonies. Zool have been present in this region of space for a number of years, and have been known to make guerrilla attacks on the colonies of other sentient races. Because the attacks seldom left any survivors to tell of the tale, little is known about the raiders, their physiology, technology, and motives remain a mystery for many years. More recently, however, the members of the Zool in the region have become increased exponentially, and their tactics have changed. Soul Force has become to encounter larger and larger contingents of Ripper ships that are willing to engage their enemies head-on. As captured prisoners, combat casualties, and savage Ripper technology become available to the Soul Force science corps, a number of disturbing discoveries have been made. First and foremost, it's been collectively proven that the Zoul are not a product of natural evolution. These savage marsupials are a result of profound and sophisticated genetic tampering. They've been shaped by bioscience, which far surpasses that of any known race. Although it's nearly impossible to say what sort of creatures served as the base stock for the Rippers, or what race created them, we do know that a number of their natural attributes have been enormously enhanced. Rate of reproduction, tendency to aggression, intelligent and psionic abilities have been artificially increased, and the latitude qualities seem to be increasing further with each generation. In only a few decades, the Zoul have gone from a smoldering of disorganized raiding parties to a large, organized, and coordinated fighting force. Although the location of the central base is presently unknown, Soul Force has gleaned some valuable information on the history of the Rippers from the ruins of the planet Erda 5. Please see additional notes at the end of this briefing. Zoul ships appear to be assembled from components that were once part of some other structure. Very often the vessels are made up from parts torn from different sources. Bits and pieces from enemy ships, colonial storage cages, and even ore carriers or water pods can be made to serve a single Zoul's destroyer. Spirit parts are crudely wielded together in a serviceable whole. Extermination of derelict Reaper vessels and reveals bits and pieces stolen from many species. These fragments can often be identified by nose art or sarin lumber. Somewhat disturbing to note that very often these random chunks are taken from a vessel lost in battle with species other than the Zol. From this evidence, it would seem that the Rippers have visited the scene of many battles. The main combatants have departed to come through the drifting debris looking for anything or anyone that they could use. The only technology unique to the Zol is their FTL drive, which is based on a node branch of gravitonic theory. This so-called Rip drive uses a forced energy event to create a miniature black hole. Its artificial singularity creates a tiny tear in the fabric of space and time, penetrating its subspace node space layer. What begins as a small puncture immediately opens to a large rip and a new gravimetric stress fracture, which quickly forms a channel between the closest massive stellar body and that of a neighboring star system. Any given Ripper ship can detect and travel among these space-time tunnels. Once they are open, the rip lanes eventually form a network not unlike naturally occurring node one lines followed by human vessels. Unlike node lines, however, a rip lane is not stable in connection through node space. These lanes have a tendency to collapse over time. Zul weapon systems, like the hulls of their starships, often appear to have been torn from other ships or other races. From the ships of other races, or back engineered and adopted to use after having salvaged from an enemy ship. The Zul have a number of physical characteristics that are unusual in a sentient race. There's a high degree of sexual dimorphism within their species, and enormous physical and psychological differences apparent between males and females. Zuls also undergo an unusual cycle of development from birth to adulthood. Because there are such extreme differences between male and female Zul as adults, between all adult Zul and their offspring in the earlier phases, a Zul family seen together might easily be misconstrued as 4 or 5 separate species. Nonetheless, there are some general statements which apply to all Rippers. They are species of non-placental mammal, warm-blooded, oxygen-breathing with very high metabolic reproductive rate. They thrive in a variety of conditions and adapt with alarming speed to nearly any set of environmental changes. Zol of both sexes and of ages are covered in a thick coat of hair, and colors vary with the individual. The fur can be considerably less dense on the adult male, and the coat may be greatly reduced in length and thickness in hotter worlds. Zol of all ages are omnivores and have a taste for carrion. This is especially true in early childhood. A growing Zul may consume many times its own weight in meat per day. Some xenobiologists speculate that Zul were bred from a rootstock of carrion-eating predators, which may particularly account for the extremely high resistance they have to infection, especially by bacterial pathogens. Zul of all ages possess a rudimentary telepathic ability, which is the strongest in the adult male. His crude telepathic communication is the basis for the basic Zul social unit, which Soul Force is dubbed the Coterie. The Coterie is an instinctive behavior pattern for the Zul species. All adult Zul members of the Coterie, which usually consists of a group of 612 females and 1 male. When the male Zul will take a dominant role and serve as a de facto brain for the entire unit, a coterie of Zul is a single unit for all intents and purposes. Subject to the direction of a single will, in Zul society, the coterie, specifically its male, is considered an individual person. Despite their resistance to disease and their native intelligence, the maximum lifespan of every Zul is not long. If he or she meets with no accidental or violent end, Ripper metabolism is so high that most members of the species die of natural causes before the age of 40. See additional notes of Zul society at the end of this briefing. The average Ripper male ranges in height from 85 to 125 centimeters, with the mass ranging from 45 to 70 kilograms. Although far smaller than his female cohorts, he is strong and agile and very adept at climbing. All his sensors are quite acute, and his vision is particularly sophisticated, especially in comparison to the female. Some scientists suggest that under primitive conditions, he was served as the eyes of the hunting party, helping them track prey from elevated positions. Of all Zul, only adult male is fully sentient in the modern sense of the word. Its forelimbs are equipped with long fingers, sensitive hands, and opposable thumbs. His punch claws are vestigial and do not interfere with tool use. His brain is much larger and more complex than the female Ripper. He's far more intelligent and has more sophisticated telepathic ability. This large and Complex brain is analogous to that of many other starfaring species, which allow him to understand and communicate complex ideas. Unlike the females of the species, he has both telepathic and verbal language skills, and with his dexterous hands, he can able to deconstruct various mechanical devices. Psionic ability of male Zool is his most dangerous feature. It is through a telepathic link that he control the coterie of his much larger and stronger female rippers. They obey his telepathic commands instantly and without reflection. The male Zool can also telepathic coercion and interrogation on members of enemy species. For more information on the tendency of Zool raiders to kidnap sentient captives from enemy worlds, see intelligence gathering among the Zool at the end of this briefing. Zool female is a massive creature ranging from a height of 150 to 220 centimeters and weighing in roughly 175 kilograms. Her bones are highly dense and strong and had to get a species origin in a high gravity world. Her muscular battery is capable of leaping 2 or 3 times her own length, or lift pressing up to 400 kilos. Although she normally stands and walks upright, her hips and spine are not fully adapted to running on 2 legs, and she'll drop to on 4s when she wishes to move at speed. Her fangs are quite sharp, and her jaws are capable of exerting over 200 kilos of crushing force. The female Zool's most dangerous physical weapons are undoubtedly 2 massive punch claws, which protrude from twin sheaths on their forearms. These natural weapons may evolve from digging claws of primitive burrowing ancestor, but at present the claws are more used to inflict catastrophic damage on enemy soldiers and equipment. With one swipe of her punch claws, the female Zool can disembowel a man in heavy armor and tear through half an inch of titanium steel. Holy shit. Although her brain is small relative to that of male with a maximum mass of 800 grams, the female Zool is a sensitive and intelligent beast in her own right. Her visual acuity seems to be limited, but her hearing and olfactory sensors are quite sharp, and she also possesses a simple empathetic ability. With the direction of a male, she is capable of sophisticated tool use, including the operation of heavy machinery. The male Zool quarters kill, however, the females remain highly dangerous. Even without direction, a group of female Zool is a hunting pack, and a very large and intelligent predators. They can always use simple weapons with some skill. Perhaps the most noteworthy aspect of the female Zool's physiology is their fertility cycle. The adult female is almost always pregnant, for want of a better word. She carries a full liter of embryonic Zool at all times. All those offspring are conceived within her body. They emerge within 30 days from aqueous environment of her womb and are placed on a marsupial pouch for safekeeping. Up to a dozen of these ripper proto-worms will be attached to her nipples at any given time. Okay. Well, that explains those Zool worms then. Look, it's so different than the species that I was killing in the pit. Like other marsupials, the Zool female forcibly ejects her milk into the mouths of her offspring, while the eyeless worm-like pups nestle in the safety of her pouch. Unlike ordinary marsupials, however, or ordinary mammals for the matter, the milk of a ripper female is not primary intended to nourish a young. Instead, she secretes a narcotic fluid which is designed to keep her pouchlings dormant. They remain effectively comatose until the flow of the milk is stopped, and will only awaken to begin to grow and develop when she has died or have removed them from her pouch. Once the flow of milk to underdeveloped Zool is stopped, it quickly rouses from its dormancy. At this stage of a ripper's life, a tiny infant has no eyes, no ears, and only vestigial limbs at the full length of his body, no more than 15 centimeters. Shaken from the sleep induced by its mother's milk, however, the infant ripper obey its one imperative, to eat. The minutes it will begin to devour all animal and vegetable matter in its path. Since they are used almost exclusively for hard and hazardous labor, it's not unusual for a brooding female Zool to die while carrying a pouch full of young. If she does, the members of the coterie would not be concerned. The mother's own body immediately becomes a host for the proto-worm sleeping in her pouch. Upon awaking, the larval rippers will tunnel through the flesh and bone until every particle of the mother is devoured. However, it is not necessary for a female Zool to die in order to provide nourishment for her children. She may also provide proto-worms from her pouch at any time and place them with the corpse of a fallen foe, or any mound of meat or vegetable matter she may have gathered in the purpose of feeding them. Traditional birth to growth, infant Zool, an average length of 40 centimeters, and a mass around 2 kilometers. Rippers this age greatly resemble the members of the Terran family, Suul'ka, weasels, ferrets, etc., to explain those dog things that I was fighting. Armed with sharp teeth and claws, these young ripper will also have the keen senses and intelligence of a cat-like predator. Combined with a rudimentary telepathic sense, these very primitive and instinctive telepathy allows the infant Zool to detect prey and to recognize other members of his own species. I'm glad I am reading this because I didn't know all that about the Zool, so knowing that explains why there's multiple Zool type of things. It was weird. Like on the entries, there's like so many different Zool stuff. Following the instinctive drives, the Zool of the stage will usually form a nest with one or two other infants. Of the same sex, beginning a life of hunting and stockpiling kills. Infant rippers have a metabolism so high that they sleep only rarely. They must hunt constantly for the calories to keep their long, slender bodies warm and support their rapid growth and development. There's no necessary relationship between the infant and adult Zool at this phase. When living on the surface of the planet, it seems to be common practice for the adult Zool to abandon their offspring during infancy and expose them to the elements, forcing them to adapt to the environment or die. Some sociologists claim that this is a cultural practice. The high rate of infant mortality may actually be deemed desirable because the only fittest Zool will survive the ordeal. See the notes of Zool Society. It can take anywhere from 30 to 90 days for the infant Zool to complete its infant phase and enter the pre-adolescent phase of the development. At this stage, the average Zool has grown considerably and the mass range of 20 to 50 kilograms. Males of this age will already be smaller than the females, but Zool of all ages have gone through significant physiological changes. The brain of the Zool is nearly double in size at this point and approaching 800 grams of the adult. She has developed significantly muscle and bone structure in her limbs and torso and can stand and walk upright when she chooses, and will often launch herself in leaps several times the length of her own body to make a kill. Two large punch claws are already her primary weapons used in hunting and self-defense against other Zool. Brain of this male already weighs over 1 kilogram and is increased in complexity by an order of magnitude. He will roughly have the intelligence and the curiosity of a very young child for many other sentient species. He can walk upright and climb with great agility, especially if threatened. His underdeveloped punch claws are useless as weapons, but do not interfere with this manipulation of objects. He would become increasingly attracted to a tool used at his age. His telepathic abilities would begin to flower at a phenomenal rate, allow him to attract and communicate with females, a form of coterie of his own. He also began to acquire language skills to communicate with older males. In this age, the social relationship with Zool begin to evolve. The members of the infant Zool nest will tend to drift apart if they are male. The pre-adolescent male will instinctively seek out groups of females to hunt and care for him. In the case of females, the pre-adolescent children tend to form even stronger bonds with their nest sisters and seek out other female Zools to join into larger groups. Zool females naturally form the empathic bonds of the coterie at this age, begin to hunt in coordinated packs, acting in concert. A group of 6 to 12 female Zool could take down a prey animal and much larger than themselves. If left to their own devices, Zool of this age will eventually form primitive coteries, with pre-adolescent male providing guidance and direction to a group of females. However, this is also the age where the adult males of the species will generally begin to take interest in their own. Some will seek new females to fill the gaps left in the adult coterie while the wives have been killed. Other males will take an interest in fledgling males, taking them as protégés. Regardless, it is unusual for any Zool to grow past the age of adolescence in continued feral state. Most rapers that survive infancy are adopted as children and raised to adulthood as members of Zool society. Certain peculiarities of the male Zool cognitive process must be also understood before the social characteristics of the species can be explained. The male Zool is an inexhaustibly curious animal possessed by hunger for knowledge, information, understanding, which might be considered admirable or not so imbecile to the interests of other sentient beings. From early childhood, a male Zool is driven to seek intellectual stimulation. The common source of stimulation is rather horrifying to contemplate. There's a good deal of communication and cooperation among the Zool, who seem to share information and concepts very rapidly with one another by verbal and telepathic means. Moreover, above this cooperative education, male Zool take pleasure in evading the minds of other sentient beings, scouring them for information and knowledge by means of psionic and interrogation. The process of harvesting information from enemy's brain is emotionally painful, psychologically devastating, and ultimately destructive for the victim, often leaving large gaps in memory or cognitive function. Many Zool try to draw out this process for as long as possible, not only because they find it diverting, but because it's far more efficient to break down a victim's minds patiently over a period of months rather than tear apart too quickly. The more gifted or educated the victim, the longer the Zool interrogator will try to extend the unraveling of the mind, Brilliant scientists or engineers considered a prize among the Zool, and such a prisoner can expect to spend months or even years in the interrogation room. It's fucked up. The mind of the captive has been ripped clean. The process leaves behind an empty shell. The victim's body is catonic, along with no brain activity from the simple autonomic level. Typically, such a prisoner will then be turned over to the female Zool to be eaten or used as a host for the Zool offspring. Not all the captives taken by the Zool will be subject to psionic interrogation. The vast majority, in fact, will still become slaves. Although the mental strength of the male Zool varies, Zool slave masters capable of overpowering psionic coercion. Former slaves of Zool often describe themselves as virtual automatons when subjected to the master's will and acting as ordered without being able to physically resist or constantly form a rational, objective, or emotional response to their own actions, even when forced to harm friends or loved ones. Ugly as it is to compensate well, I fucked that up. Could be the hours of reading. These mental feeding habits of the male Zool are the heart of the rapid technology and social advancement of the species. Through psionic coercion, the Zool have been able to use enemy prisoners to operate their own foreign technology, which is to accelerate the back engineering of the technology to an incredible degree. Through psionic interrogation, the Zool have increased their fund of scientific and technical information by incalculable leaps and bounds, as well as absorbing numerous abstract notions which have helped to shape their present society. Assembling notes on the history and culture of the Zool has proven to be difficult for a variety of reasons. Very few Zool have been captured alive and taken prisoner. Those captured, only the males can be interrogated at all, and an interrogated male Zool presents a significant challenge to those without natural psionic defenses. Nonetheless, some details emerge from early sessions with the few Zool patriarchs who have chosen to cooperate with their captors. All sources agree, for example, that Zool society as such is relatively a recent phenomenon. The Zool species is extremely young, and the entire race has existed in its current form for less than 100 years. Since they were first created and unleashed on the unsuspecting inhabitants of the world we called Era 5, the Zool have become in a constant state of flux. In only recent decades have the various coteries of the Zool formed a collective organization society sharing common ideals and goals. Soul Force investigators were given the location at Erdify by Zool, presently known as the codename Decon. Oh, is that book? Okay. Erdify is a hot giant star surrounded by dense high-gravity planetary bodies. By the time of their arrival, the ruins of the fifth planet had been abandoned by the Zool for a number of years, and most of the structures were in the state of weather-beaten disrepair. Nonetheless, with the help of the guidance of the Decon, a team of crack archaeologists able to piece together the tragic history of this world and to find the remains of its former occupants. Urda 5 is a colonial outpost of the unknown alien species. To date, we have no name for this unknown race. Soul Force scientists refer to them as Species X. Little is known of the physical and social natures of Species X. Even the remaining bone fragments left in Urda 5 are rarely larger than 20 centimeters in length, but we do know that they were a star-faring race with unknown means of fashion and light propulsion. They've settled on Urda 5 traveling a significant distance from their own home world. We know the remains of civilizations have been found in neighboring star systems, but they were not native to I-5. The remains of Species X have been tested extensively for any resemblance to life forms on the surface. There are only a handful of planets and animals on the planet that show more than 90% of their genome. We can safely assume that the organisms were imported as part of a terraforming project to make Urda 5 more livable. Examining their structures built by Species X suggests that the colony was a scientific and research facility. Majority of resources appear to have been devoted to laboratories and machinery designed by high-energy research, possibly in the field of gravity manipulation. It may have been this research that first attracted the attention of Species Y, the creators of Zool, or there may have been a pre-existing conflict between the two races. It's a possible present to say, according to the testimony of Deacon. However, the members of Species X did not expect to be attacked in any way, and made no effort to defend themselves. They may even believe they were alone in the universe prior to the first contact with another star-faring race. Regardless, it is clear that when the first infant Zool appeared in the air, Species X did not immediately recognize the voracious creatures as the deliberate attack. They were mistakenly regarded as infestation of native pests. Species Y, however, had deliberately and maliciously dropped the first Zool and Ruta 5 with the intention of destroying Species X. The remains of the drop pods they've used been found, and they were obviously released from lower orbit, filled with 5 female Rippers who intended to die and impact with the planet's surface. The mass awakening of Zool infants fall, this drop must have created an appalling wave of destruction. Mathematically speaking, most of the architectural resources in the colony would have been wiped out within a few weeks, as well as many of the members of its civilian population. Despite the efforts of Species X to fight the horde of infant Zool, a large number of Rippers clearly survived to later childhood and began to form the first coteries in the undefended perimeter of the colony. It was here that the original intentions of Species Y may have gone away, or we cannot say precisely what they meant to achieve when they created the Zool. It seems unlikely they realized the full potential of their creation. All we can say for certain is that they dropped the Zool on the surface of Ruta 5, departed the scene. There's no evidence that they ever returned. It seems probable that they expected a salvage Zool to survive only long enough to wipe out Species X. They could not have expected this to take long, as the population of Ruta 5 was small and not prepared for defend itself. Thereafter, it was probably have been logical to assume that the Zool would quickly die out, exhausting very limited resource, while bleak half-terraformed world in very short order. The Zool, by nature a rapacious and highly aggressive species, should have quickly eaten a Ruta 5 down to the bedrock and then suffocated when the last oxygen-producing plants were destroyed. When the scientists of Species 5 would take around the intelligence and psionic capabilities of Zool, however, they may not realize the fascination that mate Zool would have for the minds of the potential victims. It's horrifying, obvious from the evidence found on Ruta 5 that survivors of Species X were not all quick and dying. Jordan would not eat until years or even decades after the first generation of Rippers reached adulthood. Instead, these colonies were held captive, enslaved, studied, and mind-ripped by the primitive forebears of the modern Zool, who were used as alien scientists and adapted technology to build the first ships which fledgling Rippers would reach the stars. The length of time that some Species X captives remained alive is itself astonishing. It seems to indicate that the race may have some natural inborn resistance to psionic invasion or attack. Many decades later, all remaining members of Species X are now long gone. It is impossible to even piece together a partial skeleton from the race. Nonetheless, it's very real sense both Species X and Species Y were the parents of the modern Zool in Ripper cosmology, and the contributions of both species are regarded as sacred. To say that Zool society is male-dominated would be a grotesque understatement. Among Zool, females are regarded at best. General male sees the members of the coterie as expendable tools and treats them as he might treat a body part that can be easily and painlessly replaced. Rippers meet in social situations. Females are generally concealed from view, draped with cloth in order to crouch inconspicuously until they are useful. Society as such consists of only a male Zool. At present, the race is organized as a loose theocracy. All Ripper males are members of a single religion and motivated by a single set of ideals and goals, which are the tenets of the religion. Modern Zool recognize themselves as artificial species. Their own artificial origin fascinates them, and they developed an obsession desire to find the race they call the creators, the Great Masters, aka Species Y. The mysterious scientists that abandoned them on the surface of Ruta 5. It is a belief that among the Zool that every aspect of their nature represents a deliberate and purposeful choice on the part of the creators, who in their strong, rapish intelligence, etc., in order to serve as part of their greater scheme. They would like to have the details of the scheme revealed to them, and most Zool appear to believe that the creators will reappear and explain a great many things about the universe and Zool's place in it when their creators have somehow proved their worth. Accordingly, all Zool ventures into space are conceived as part of the Great Crusade, quest for knowledge and the power for which ultimately lead the Reapers to the Celestial Fathers, the scientists of Species 5. Opinions seem to differ whether the creators are planning a return at some point on their accord, or whether the Zool expected to find them in some colossal cosmic game of hide and seek. Regardless, until they meet the creators face to face, the Zool believe it is sacred duty and divine right to act on the imperatives that make all the species seem to share. They believe that they are obligated and entitled to satisfy their relentless curiosity, thirst for knowledge on the one hand, and to enslave and destroy the weaker, less worthy species that populate the universe on the other. To the Zool, the universe and living things are generally regarded as mother. Like Species X, all things mother are worthless and meaningless in and of themselves. Despicable and weak as they may be, however, that which is mother, is nevertheless the wellspring of life. Fecund, a fecund of better resources designed to be ripped apart and devoured in order that the divine masculine spark can come to exist. By contrast, that which is considered pure, admirable, and worthy of respect in some ways is usually considered masculine and given attributes of father. The only true currency of the Rip economy is information. The wealth and influence of any given Zool is measured by the number of ships and slaves he can control. Intelligence and strength of mind are highly valued. Higher status is conferred upon those with the strongest psionic abilities. Rank among the Zools tend to be analogous to the organization of religious faith. More influential Zool hold their positions by the charismatic power of the will, as well as the ability to educate and enlighten others. Father, Lord, Master are all the common terms of respect used by those addressing a superior. Brother is how one addresses an equal, and son is a term one uses to address an inferior. The highest ranking members of the Zool society hold titles equivalent to that of bishop or cardinal, and the nearest human equivalent to the Zool's great father would probably be an ancient pharaoh pope. The orders given by these high-ranking Zool are obeyed without question, but there's a good deal of debate as whether this unity cooperation among the Zool can last. Given at the rate which Rippers seem to absorbing information and ideas from alien captives, some kind of social breakdown or schism is definitely a possibility. Even the current organization of Zool society seems to be preserved the sort of version of religious and social notions which are somehow ripped from other races. And the few new ideas could have such sweeping, far-reaching effects on the culture, few could easily reduce their species to an interdependent war. Every sentient race has seen how easily a new idea can become a new ideology. In their hunger to swallow the souls of other races, the soul may eventually bite off more than they can chew. We are travelers, the tribes of the Starborn. We rise like a new-fledged phoenix from the ashes of ruin, stretching forward to reclaim the sacred stars. If you would see our faces, look to your own dreams, your legends and tales of times long past, there you find us burning bright. Your ancestors offered us tribute and honor, but now you've forgotten us in the old ways. You disturbed the graves of our fathers, murder our sister and wives, and give us no choice but to serve you a chalice of blood. The sentient species still living in the sector of the galaxy, Morigi are one of the most ancient and have the longest recorded history of the interstellar travel. Initially known only by the unique configuration of their low-orbiting attack drones, the Morigi were named Crows by the first human spacers to encounter them. These craft have an aerodynamic avian shape and swooping attack pattern which brought to mind the predatory scavengers of old Earth. In recent years, more intense investigation by Soul Force Intelligence has revealed that the nickname Crow was curiously apt in many respects. The Morigi have traits in common with the legendary Raven or Crow of old Earth. And any study of their history and behavior inevitably recalls panoply of Terran legends of the divine trickster bird, which can easily assume a variety of different forms, led by its befuddled enemies into fatal ambush. Hoodwink more powerful foes out of valuable treasure, and which served inevitably as an avatar of the gods and the goddesses of war. Morigi roughly translate as travelers in the Proto-Corolla known as the trade language. There's some indication that the word may have other shades of meaning, and that the Morigi dialects which remain untranslated. At this juncture, it is impossible to say how long the Morigi have been capable of traversing long interstellar distances, but biological and archaeological evidence unearthed on Xeraxes, Korkana, Rira, and Mars suggests the Morigi have been travelers for several millennia. Skeletal remains recovered on Rira have revealed that some members of the Morigi species spent their entire development lives in space, from late infancy to adulthood, for at least 6,000 years. Artifacts recovered from the sites excavated on Xeraxes and Mars suggest that the Morigi were monitoring and visiting the homeworlds of the human and hybrid races for at least 4,000 years before either species went into the Industrial Revolution. The dramatic site unearthed on Kakorna indicates that the Morigi have attempted to establish a residence on Tarka homeworld for nesting purposes in the past. See sidebar, the worm of Taranto. The modern Morigi are not the pinnacle of technological and military achievement for the species. Ample evidence suggests that the current political and technological state of the species in fact represent a significant decline from a peak which occurred some 10 to 15,000 years ago. While the Morigi Empire appears to have reached its maximal astro-territorial extent and its pinnacle of architecture and technological achievement. Ruins dating to this era are still found in some star systems which are not presently held by Morigi colonists and seem to be seldom visited by Morigi fleets. Given that the modern Marigi may be the descendants of the more advanced Marigi civilization, and that a great many technological secrets of the forebears appears to be lost to them, the technological complex they still possess is quite impressive. Central to this technoculture is highly advanced skill for building and programming pilotless drones, and uncanny control over the gravimetric weapons and unique faster than light engine called the Void Cutter. A Void Cutter engine, once engaged, uses gravimetric force, focusing the warp space around the ship to the point where it quickly accelerates the speeds in excess of speed of light. In so doing, however, the engine appears to create a ripple of disturbance, a bow wave of space-time distortion, which flows around the body of the ship and trails behind it in a wake. This bow wave has several principles which Marigi shipwrights and pilots have learned to take advantage of this centuries. The most salient of which is that other ships employing a similar engine can enter the slipstream of the foremost vessel and conjure their own bow wave into that leader and achieve faster than light speed without wasting the majority of the energy to create initial disruption. All ships following the lead vessel in Marigi flight pattern can devote the majority of the energy to forward thrust rather than using it to crack the void. The more Marigi vessels are joined in a single flight, the faster the fleet as a whole will move. The engines of all engines but one will be applied to thrust, while only the lead ship, the Void Cutter, will be devoting to a majority of its energy to disrupting the fabric of space-time. Marigi travels slowest alone and fastest in numbers. Marigi display a mosaic of biological traits loosely associated with reptile, mammal, and avian life forms. They appear to have evolved from the arboreal omnivore and still consume a varied diet. The emphasis on protein and fat suggests that the earliest ancestors may have been ambush predators. Physical traits are expressed differently by males and females of the species, but the sexual dimorphism observed may be only partially biological. A great deal of divergence between the sexes may be caused by cultural practices, which significantly shape the bodies of male and female Marigi in very different ways as they develop from infancy to adulthood. The basic Marigi loose torso is long and serpentine, with a length of approximately 6 meters from nose to tip to tail tip, and the largest female specimen found to date. In the largest female specimen found to date. Males appear to be significantly smaller in all cases, reaching a maximum length of 3 meters. There are 8 limbs. There are 8 limbs along the length of the body. 2 pairs of grasping limbs are found in the upper torso, while each of the opposing digits in a broad range of motion through shoulder and wrist. The third limb pair evolved into a pair of wings at some point during Marigi evolution, like when they were far less massive creatures. The wing pair extends to a wide span in the male and still allows them to achieve short bursts of atmospheric flight. The wings appear to be vestigial and useless for flight in the female, but may still remain some motive or display function in social settings, a phenomenon that is observed in other xenoscientists. In both male and female Marigi, a pattern of reptilian scales covers the body. Scales have developed a feather-like consistency over the wing pair, similar to the scale plumage observed in the head and the tail. The latter scales are highly colorful in the male and appear to be a social display purpose. The fourth limb pair above the tail marks ends the organ cavity and is armed with a larger, more robust set of grasping claws. The prehensile tail extends for considerable distance, sometimes nearly doubling the length of the body, and in the male of the species sometimes arrayed in the impressive second fan to display plumage. Both the male and female Marigi have an elongated skull and a brain volume over 2,000 cubic centimeters and a beak-like proboscis. The proboscis is split into 3 divisions, in the male Marigi and an infant Marigi of both sexes. In the female, the 2 lower divisions of the beak appear to fuse to a single bony palate during adolescence. The eyes of both sexes are large, array towards the front of the skull and allow for binocular vision and excellent depth perception. An array of rods and cones allow them to see contrast, movement, and a full spectrum of color, with some extended range into the infrared. The Marigi retain a tape trim include lucidum, reflective layer of tissue at the back of the eye, as well suggests that they may have evolved originally from a lineage which foraged and hunted in low light as well as full light conditions. Internally, a Marigi possess an unusual cardiovascular system with 4 functioning hearts and 4 pairs of lungs along the length of the body. The organ cavity in both sexes is armored by a long pectoral girdle which anchors over 70 rib sets and behaves very much like a second spine. The pectoral spine mirrors the interlocking structure of the dorsal spine, but is wider and more loosely joined. The largest heart-lung pair in the Marigi body cavity is found in the upper torso, just below the uppermost limb set. A second, less robust pump is found below the second limb pair, with the large and powerful heart just below the wings. Final heart and lungs is found above the final limb set, and serving to pump blood to and from the prehensile tail, along with the trachea and alimentary canal leading from the head. There's additional 8 subtly hidden breathing orifices are arranged along the body. Apparently, these can be consciously opened or sealed by a Marigi chooses to hold its breath for any reason, including an occasional phrase into the water. Both male and female Marigi are highly intelligent and possess some psionic ability. Although this ability is expressed very differently in the two sexes, see sexually dimorphic traits below for further information. The Marigi are divided into 2 biological sexes, and the Marigi culture mandates that the male and female offspring be separated to gender-segregated communities in early infancy. Male Marigi spend their lives from infancy to sentience in space, living aboard nomadic starships which travel constantly from star to star. Female Marigi are terrestrial creatures for the duration of their lives, raised in full gravity and adapted accordingly to planetary conditions. While they are known to travel from star to star, they always seek out a base for land operations and conditions congenial to life on a planet's surface. The difference in diet and environment and activity breeding male and female Marigi lead the two sexes on 2 very different lines of physical development. Male Marigi are much smaller overall and the average height of the female, than the average female, and have much less robust bone development, especially in the weight-bearing members of the lower limb sets. These are rarely capable of standing in upright and full gravity, but can still usually fly for short bursts and glide for longer periods via their large, powerful wings. Overall, the avian characteristics of this race are highly emphasized in the male. The bones are extremely light and fragile, and the feather scales are larger, longer, and much more brilliantly colored on the head, wings, and tail, and often contrast sharply to the scales of the body. The training beak of an infant and adolescent Marigi never fuses in the male of the species and remains open throughout adulthood. The dorsal and pectoral spines in the male are much larger and more flexible. The hearts and lungs are larger and even in some cases hypertrophic, leading to visible bulges in the rib girdle. Nowhere is the sexual dimorphism of the species more clear than the expression of psionic tendencies. Male Marigi possess a high degree of empathy with other members of their own species and with any other conscious living thing. The faculty greatly facilitates the Marigi ability to communicate, in particular to acquire new language skills and cultural fluency as needed, and may go a long way to explain the phenomena of so-called Marigi trade language, a proto-Creole which reflects the deep language structures of known sentience in this sector of the galaxy. Another unusual feature of the Marigi psionic complex is the famous Marigi glamour effect, also exclusive to the male and likely caused by the fierce social competition for mates within the species. Over millennia, the male Marigi appear to have developed a capacity to attract and lure other creatures via an unusual form of psionic camouflage. Under the influence of the male Marigi's glamour, what is this, fables? The victim's brain will spontaneously produce an image of beauty or grace that might normally be associated with desirable male companionship. This fake baby sharp to extreme if the victim is biologically female, causing the Marigi to appear at least briefly as an extremely attractive male of her species. Although generally this illusion will be strangely still, equipped with wings that may even be in flight. In contrast to the spacefaring male, female for Marigi tend to become much larger in overall body length and mass. In general, females who developed reptilian characteristics of the species much more fully. The feather scales of the head, tail, and wing appear are much shorter, less brilliant, and display less contrast with the torso. The weight-bearing members of the lower body are much more robust and heavily muscled. Lower body much more robust and heavily muscled, allowing for limited bipedalism and rapid movement over horizontal and vertical planes on land. The bones are thicker and heavier. The tribune beak tripping beak becomes more classically avian proboscis than the female, as the lower halves of the split into a full bony palate, which represents a formidable cutting and piercing edge to potential predators and adolescents. Female Marigi are equipped with 3 uterine organs along the underside of the body, each able to produce a single fertile egg from a given mating event, and any given female may mate with more than one mate and produce a separate egg from each father if she chooses. Marigi infants are produced in clutches of up to 3, spend approximately 18 months from laying and hatching to fledging their first feather scales in infancy. When the fledgling Marigi spout their first plumage, males and females are divided. A Marigi mother typically flags the nearest fleet at this time to offer her sons for ascension to space, while reserving her daughters for terrestrial life within a meteorological tribe. Psionic ability in the female Marigi is expressed more defensively than in the male, although females advance some empathetic and communicative ability. It is much less developed and much less common in female Marigi to be capable of creating a psionic glamour. They do, however, possess a powerful facility of psionic resistance, which may have developed over the centuries in some sort of biocultural arms race with the males of the species. Female Marigi have a very high resistance to psionic attacks of persuasion. There's some evidence that they could deflect or disrupt Lyrian telekinesis. That's kind of neat. Little is known about the social behaviors of the pre-Stalin Marigi, or the Marigi of the so-called Golden Age. For the past several thousand years, their society has been made up of loosely affiliated and often highly competitive tribes, once largely independent of one another. Today, all surviving Marigi tribes have formed a confederation for mutual defense. At the recent Lawson War, which took place some 100 years ago, modern Marigi took leadership to a single Marigi war leader, and so-called Moro Quran. War is an unusual undertaking to modern Marigi. In general, it appears that they prefer to use other societies as trading partners rather than engage in military conflict. Given that both male and female Marigi are highly intelligent, highly competitive, and often territorial, it may be inferred that these wars are more frequent at some point during their history. Until the past century, however, war among the people was unknown, and combat was relatively bloodless. Ritual carried out at regular gathering festivals when tribal groups would come together in certain regions of space. This changed the rival of species, which the Marigi call the Screamers. The Suul'ka. They're related to the Soul'ka. The heart and soul of the traditional Marigi culture has always been the complex relationship between males and females. Each of the two sexes have its own lifeway and widely different realm of social concerns. Female Marigi are traditionally land-bound and have developed a terrestrial hierarchy based on ownership of bounded planetary property, industry and the use of capital, the control of physical resources, and the building of urban environments. Male Marigi are stellar nomads and have developed a nomadic hierarchy based on the control of vast regions of space, trade routes, and access to desirable areas' resources, including the privilege to ascend to court available females for the rights of marriage and economic alliance. The curious division of society has created a complex web of dependency and exchange between the two sexes. Beyond the need to come together for mating and propagation of the genes, male and female Marigi depend on one another to meet crucial economical and political needs. Marigi females depend on the relationship with the allied male fleet groups to fuel the economy with needed resources and trade goods, as well as to provide defense for the vulnerable worlds and assert power within the political system. Marigi males depend on their relationship with female corporate lives to build, arm, fuel, provision, and repair the starships, which are simultaneously their lives and their livelihoods, as well as providing a steady supply of new tribesmen. Over millennia, the Marigi have evolved elaborate culture rituals which establish and maintain these social, political, and economical and sexual relationships. At the broad social level, female groups strive to build and maintain cities, colonies, and shipyards that make them attractive to males to achieve a steady flow of male traffic and alliance. Marigi females will build impressive structures to assert their powers as artists, architects, and scientists, presenting these impressive monuments as evidence of tribal power. By contrast, male groups have developed their fighting skills in order to give a good showing to intertribal competition. Trading and navigational skills are also developed at the maximal extent, and male Marigi are often complete both within the tribal group and more savagely with the other tribal groups to seek the most beautiful and exotic item from the most far-flung world to offer females as evidences as their true value as traders. Marigi lust for unusual objects is a strong motivation force within their society. Items from distant planets are sought, exchanged, and avidly collected by both male and female Marigis as fetishes of power. Temples which collect and display these objects are sacred, representing the ultimate expression of tribal identity and union of male and female groups. Sufficiently rare and precious objects can cement a right of marriage between thousands of individuals, male and female, who belong to the corresponding tribes. On the individual level, both males and females of species are considered valuable mating partners. They evince a high intelligence and psionic ability. The physical beauty of the male is highly prized as its charm, the ability to project the glamour, speed, and martial ability. Females are valued for strength and wealth, and many mates find the most irresistible mates are those ones who see through them the most easily. This is a sign of high psionic resistance and is highly prized, possibly because such males in the alliance they represent will be neither easily gained nor easily lost. Alright. It is impossible to distinguish between male and female Marigi at birth, and the female Marigi plays equal parenting effect into all infants until the period of fledgling, which occurs 3 years after the female's leathery eggs are laid and hatched. At fledgling, the bright colors, highly contrasting scales on the male are immediately obvious, and the other sexual characteristics lead to the 63rd chromosome also appear. At this point, the males are separated from the sister clutch, and mates still wait ascension. On the arrival of the next stellar fleet, the Marigi mothers who have given birth to males are offered the fledgling sons to be carried aloft. The ritual ascension is generally a tense moment for all parties concerned, as male tribal leaders can be quite ruthless in negotiation before they accept new fledgling mates in their ships. The atmosphere is somewhat more relaxed, and the fleet believes that the fledglings under review are their own sons, but if they have not mated with the females in question, they may demand heavy payment or process of future support as dowry of sorts. Accepting an infant into the ranks as tribesmen confers a parental responsibility on the group. Boy must be nurtured, educated, and allowed to advance within the ranks. This can apparently be more difficult than the infant does not show characteristic plumage of the tribe. Once accepted into the flock, the male Marigi begins immediately for his responsibilities as an adult. Education includes rigorous training as a pilot and combat specialist, as well as a traditional review of liberal arts. Upon passage through adolescence and an extended series of proving rituals, a fully fledged Marigi tribesman achieves a minimal competence in personal and armed combat and spacemanship. He will be expected to acquit himself at the station aboard any ship, whether he works in the galley, the guns, or commands a fleet. More importantly, from the Marigi perspective, he'll learn calligraphy, languages, astronavigation, and familiarize himself with the philosophy, songs, and literature of his people. Achieving the state of education and decorum is necessary in order to be considered a civilized person, and perhaps worthy to descend once as an adult into the company of females, once he has something worth to offer them. The desire to descend in the Marigi male is a complex one. It comprises of equal parts of sexual desire, ego, and the will to power. It is through descent that males develop economical and strategic relationships with the female counterparts. It is how they maintain their own genetic heritage. Through sons and daughters who form a legacy of blood, in order to descend, however, a male must have a ritual offering in hand. This ritual trait is called the token, and seeking and crafting this token is an exercise in personal creativity and personal expression of personal courage. The archaeological evidence unearthed on Wira is perhaps the most dramatic evidence of the danger and personal risk which an individual Marigi might be willing to undergo in order to acquire a valuable token. The pilot of the crashed vessel recovered from a deeply buried strata had clearly been collecting early Lyrian artifacts from the surface of Mir, and the ivory weapons, ornaments, and playthings recovered from the hold of his single-man starship, the type common in Illyria and Nathalic. Carbon dating of startling, well-preserved remains with pilot confirmed that he'd been the victim of stellar mishap over 4,000 years ago. Terrestrial Marigi society, female Marigi seldom travel from star to star, preferring to remain planet-bound and hold their terrestrial territory. Exception to this rule is occasional, known as the honing. During this ritual, selected female emissaries from the various feminine tribes will seek passage from the allied male tribes in a place called the Dancing Ground. At this pre-selected gathering point among the Marigi homeworlds, the female representatives from many worlds would meet in the council of the planet's surface, while the male tribes engage in an intensely competitive visual series of sports in the air and space above. These events were recorded and broadcast in the entire Marigi civilization, with competitions including a full gamut of possible battle simulations, single combat in the open air, armored combat on neighboring moon, classic ship-to-ship dogfighting engagements, and mock battles between entire fleets, and being the highlights of the spectacle. The results of the competition between the males at each event would set the hierarchy of leadership among within the otherwise largely egalitarian male tribes for the next cycle. Each cycle begins an intermediate number of years or centuries based on the Marigi's complex galactic calendar. The leader of the most victorious tribal fleet, the Honi, would become the Moro Kuran, first among the travelers until the next competition. The females allied to this tribe will gain privilege and obligation of hosting the next such event, along with other such advantages associated with political leadership. The four major xenoarchaeological sites associated with the Marigi, the most dramatic is the famous Wormadare Tomb. Discovered in the dry salt waste of the continent of Lokis, the Demato salt mine had preserved the physical remains of 14 Tarka and one Marigi female in a state of natural mummification for many thousands of years. It was excavated in the Tarkesian year in 9087, and the associated artifacts were displayed on the Imperial Museum at Lokris for several centuries. Piecing together the ancient site reported with the items still held in curation at the Lokisian capital of Kugalu, whatever, it would appear that the individuals found on Demto were all killed as a section of the salt mine collapsed, burying all 15 individuals on many tons of salt and rock. The Marigi, judged by its skeleton and equipment, would have been a well-developed adult female. Parts of her skull, left wing, and dorsal and pectoral spines were recovered, as well as these thick bones, and there were many fragments of metal which were likely part of some sort of protective armor. The Tarka group consisted of 6 females, 7 adolescent males, and 1 changed male. The latter of which was armed with an impressive bronze spear and a warhammer of the Ku dynasty. The remains of the 3 of the females and 4 of the adolescent males are heavily scorched, as they have been subjected to partial immolation. Tarkin, in context with other archaeological finds and current knowledge of Marigi terrestrial wanderings, the Wormadam 2 raises a number of disturbing questions. This is an indisputable fact that there is no creature in the fossil record of old Earth, Kukama, Tikkotu, or Mur, which present the mosaic of traits common to Marigi males and females. Nonetheless, creatures with a striking resemblance to Marigi seem to have been cropped up recently in legends, art, and iconography of all 4 species. All 4 species have at least one word, and sometimes words in several languages, for dragon. These words were almost immediately spring to mind when seeing a live Marigi for the first time. Some dragons, the legends of the 4 species, were interested in collecting treasure, and were often depicted of thrown upon the massive breeds of precious metal, arts, or gems. Oh, that makes sense. It's kind of cool how they made them like dragons from lore. Because they had to collect the most rare stuff to bring back to the planet, so that's really cool. Some dragons in the legends of the 4 species, all 4 species, were interested in collecting treasure, and often depicted and thrown upon massive bodies of precious metals, arts, or gems. In other cases, divine winged visitors appear to have exercised profound influence over political and religious leaders, and even to have established some sort of domination over a historical population, as in the fathered serpent legends of Old Earth and Tikotopri. It seems distinctly possible at this setting that the ancient Marigi visitors may have established outpost trade and possibly even imperial control over historical populations of humans, however, Starker and Lear. At present, however, the Wormwood Dream 2 is only a direct evidence to this hypothesis. Zulgi War. For thousands of years, the relationship between the Marigi and the other sentient species seemed to have been largely peaceful, centered on limited cultural exchange and trade. In the past century, however, the Marigi have suffered catastrophic losses in a war with the enemy they call the Zulgi. Analysis of bone fragments recovered from the surface of Irida 5. Oh, Irida 5, okay. Interesting. The pilot of the vessel recovered in the weird reveal an indisputable generic similarity between the two. At this point, it seems very clear that the outpost destroyed in Iridium must have been a small Marigi colony, likely populated by a female Marigi pursuing scientific research. Similar attacks have been launched by Species X, the creators of the Zool, on multiple Marigi worlds. So Species X the Marigi, I wonder? There's also evidence of combat and desecration of ancient Marigi monuments, which may have taken place at roughly the same time. Modern Marigi tribesmen are tight-lipped about the subject of the enemy, but the so-called Zugi are also known as the Screamers, and some of their transmissions mounting evidence suggests, however, that Species X, known by the Zool as the Great Masters, by Marigi as the Screamers, and later by the Soul'ka, oh shit, a powerful military technological force of the section of the galaxy until a relatively short time ago. Soul'ka returned in the second game. I was actually going to read their lore too, because I just discovered it after reading the Loa stuff, so I wonder if they'll have anything about the Zool or the Marigi. That'd be pretty cool. I can't go down. Sector, and the Soul'ka is the pit. You're going through the Soul'ka like factory or something, or some sort of like outpost they had on Aruba 5. Anyway, fighting the former homeworld, the colonial outpost of the star-faring species, which appears to have just disappeared practically overnight, earns a priority for all intelligence report agencies. If Species X was in fact destroyed by the biological warfare, as the alluring enemies claim, they left behind an incalculable wealth of infrastructure, technology, and scientific knowledge. The first species to find and back engineer the remnants of their civilization might gain a key advantage over competing species. I wonder if the Soul'ka do return and they found a way to get past that biological warfare. I wonder if it somehow got adapted to the zombie virus thing that plagues the pit. And the reason why you go down there, maybe that's somehow tied together. I don't know. The next part you'll see is me just skimming over the manual. And thanks. Well, I won't say thanks for watching because I do have another part, but just briefly go over the manual. If there's any new lore stuff, I'll read it, but it's just to go over it, just to see what it looks like. Alright, I'm going to briefly go through the manual of Sword of the Stars 1. I figured it wouldn't hurt just to go through it to see if there's anything new. Probably won't be reading a lot of it because I already read the human races. I don't need to know the basics of the game or anything like that. But if you figured I'd go through here, thanks for picking up Sword of the Stars series, license agreements. Early 22nd century, humanity escaped from the Einstein's cage. The giant ring-shaped engines of the node drive gave us the power to leap to the nearest star at many times the speed of light. After centuries of dreaming, we were finally able to leave the cradle of our home world. Took us years to build the Earth's first colony ship. The Nova Maria was a symbol for all mankind. Soon it was loaded with humanity's best and brightest. They prepared to depart, ready to inherit the galaxy which we had long ago was devoid of intelligent life. The universe was out there for a taking. Someone should have told that to the Hivers. They came in silence. No statement or no attention, no declaration of war, without even a demand for our surrender. They hit us without warning, within seconds, and our dreams of peaceful expansion were so many burning meteors falling to Earth. We barely survived the first Hiver incursion. Years later, we find out we faced only a small nesting fleet. We've yet to see the full power of the swarm. The Hive is not the only threat. We venture forth and encouraged counter the ruthless legion of the Tarka, eventually phantom fleets of the enigmatic Lear. So we learned how to build bigger and stronger ships, more powerful weapons. Humanity had to explore, expand, and even conquer, just to hold our own in a universe where weakness was extinction. In other words, in order to survive, we learned to wield the Sword of the Stars. And that's basically like the trailer that was at the start. We're the chosen ones, born of the divine. We were shaped in the image of the great masters, born to serve them in the infinite depths. We are warriors, wise men, fathers, and masters. And this is the time of the ordeal, the great silence, where we prove ourselves worthy to join the mortal gods to hear their voices once again. It took years for from the world of our spawning. It took decades to reap the wisdom of our first quarry. But our wiles are unlimited and our thirst for knowledge strong. We've lain quietly in the shadows for a century or more, skulking around the darkened holes of dead ships, raiding the proprietarians for slaves and secrets, tearing them apart, steal a mind and memory chip, seeking the truth, spark of truth, seeking the gods of our birth, and always we hunger for more. That time has come. We can wait no longer for the great master's return. Our numbers increase daily. Our children hunger, our females lust for war. The galaxy is unworthy of its gods, overrun by ignorant, arrogant slaves, mindless insects, pompous lizards, chattering apes, blaspheming rebels. It's time to teach them their place in the great scheme, where they will learn to serve their brothers or die. As is commanded, so it shall be done. We will sweep the enemies from our path. The darkness of the galaxy will forge an empire of light. We will be worthy. We will find the gods wherever they are hiding, and we will end their silence and become the claws once again. Born of fire, born of steel, born of silence, born of blood. Look into the skies, children of the dust, and heed my words. I am first of the travelers, lord of the night sky, and leader of the clans. I am the voice of the starborn. When you crawled, we flew. When you dreamt of wings, we knew the stars. We came to share with your ancestors. We returned to find death. Our female slaughtered. Our world picked over like carrion. You have laid us a banquet of sorrow. You have risen from your dark depths, your twisting tunnels, your dung-reeking cities, your pitiful nests of stone, and your fields of blood to lay claim to the very stars. Blind you wander, violating the tombs of my fathers and turning loose your pestilence upon my wives and daughters. And I say enough. Real war is coming. The travelers are yield no longer any who crawl in land or sea. For some other place to build your foul nest and fight your petty battles. The stars are sacred, and they are mine. So look at the skies, children of the dust, and see my coming. I am the dragon with 1,000 wings. My people are no longer in hiding, and now we darken your skies like a murder of crows. So did Star's Argos Naval Yard. When the call to arms goes out to humanity, the Argos Naval Shipyard. It is the Argos Naval Shipyard that answers. War still rages in the Sword of Star universe, and new ships, new technologies, new weapons are needed if mankind should survive the rising threat in the galaxy. The Lear, Hiver, Morigi, Tarka, and Zul are not resting either, and they'll too work to have more in their arsenals more than before. From heavy drones to slicing plasma weapons to the dreaded long-range rail cannons, armories are busting at the seams. Shipyards are working non-stop to provide the newest in starfaring, pursuit, and Blazier sections, and scientists from a dozen disciplines create propaganda ships to bring worlds down with a one-shot. While for some races the secrets of a distant past are revealed and put to work in the modern moderns. For even the mighty asteroid monitors have become another station to be built to define your worlds. Wars continue, but the Argos Naval Yard will consider your fleets. Ensure your fleets are more power, more options than ever. Tells you the 6 races, which you all read about. There's an overview of the gameplay, the cameras, tech-tree camera, like a walkthrough of a game. You set up the game, some of the menus, joining or leaving a game. X-Fire, huh? It's amazing, I remember X-Fire. You gotta load custom maps, maintaining your empire, there's planetary exploration. So it's just a bunch of instructions for the game, there's not really much lore. Figured I'd still go through it just so you can see the general idea, but for the most part, not really gonna read it. Fleet management, special functions, research, special research, planetary stations, end turn, combat turn, going to war. This is the complex gameplay the game has, just giving you a bunch of information about it. That's how you design your ships and weapon loadout and the credits. Hotkeys. We're not alone. On to Sword of the Star.